We are live. Thank you guys for joining us yesterday. We had a pretty good time. It was
I know
funny
it was
because
a long live
after
stream too.
after we finished the live stream around 3 p.m. I believe that's when we had like the biggest free agency like hour, where it was like signing after signing, and
It
it
was
went
mostly the
all that way.
Patriots.
Yeah, it was pretty. It was pretty. We're almost at the end of wave one. Like we're still in wave one because of the wide receiver market. Of course, we still have to wait for that today. Trent Williams, but like the pass rusher market, that was it yesterday. Like every single one, all the top 7, 8 guys, all gone, and that all happened within like a 3 hour period. Judon was like the first, right? As soon as we ended, like keeps
Yeah,
closing in, and then they all went in like a matter of 3 hours, which is pretty cool.
and we still have a lot of corners to go.
Yeah, the entire corner market is still available, so still exciting. Still a lot of moves. Funny enough, I think we mentioned it when talking about Sam Darnold. I said Ryan Fitzpatrick would be a good Washington football quarterback,
I
and
know, and I was like, I don't get it. What's the point in that?
yeah,
And
because I wouldn't pay for Sam Darnold. I would have rather rent with Fitz. Not like that's not a long term option, but
so now here's the thing, right? They have Fitz and Heineke, right?
yep.
With Fitz expected to be the starter, and so Washington, I'm assuming, like, do they go quarterback next year? If Mac Jones is there at 19 somehow, do they go Mac Jones?
To me, it seems like they're going like for best player available at 19. I don't think they're going to take Mac Jones now. I don't think
I don't even think Mac Jones will be there at
I don't
19,
think he's going to be there,
and I
but
don't think they're going to be aggressive to trade up.
I feel like they're going to go tackle in the first round, or maybe a wide receiver, depending on if they land like a Curtis Samuel or something today in free agency.
So now to shift gears a little bit, talking about quarterback. Well, let's try to dissect the season, right? So Washington isn't really making a lot of free agency moves. I think it's going to be what's up, Burger. Them, keeping their core intact. They have a lot of young guys there, so they're still under contract and just keeping some of the vets around.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be more so maintaining the defense, who's up and coming still. So they won the division last year, Washington, and preseason I expected them to win the division this upcoming season. I thought they were a year away, but how bad the NFC East was, nobody could have predicted that. So I still think they're going to be even better this year defensively.
Yeah.
1 more year under Ron Rivera, and just everybody getting older with experience. Another year Chase Young. So the whole goal right now is to get the offense up to par, because that was their weakness last season. It was the in and out of Dwayne Haskins at the beginning of the year to Kyle Allen. Then Kyle Allen went down. Then it was Alex Smith, and it was just a bunch of check downs. But now you have out of Antonio Gibson, you have out of Scary Terry, and you just
Mm-hmm.
build around them. Make sure your
And
O line's intact. Add another receiver.
do you think they add a one of these top 4 guys who are still left, like a Will Fuller or Curtis Samuel?
I'm gonna say no, just because the wide receiver needy teams in the league still haven't signed. So like we know who's more willing to spend the big money on the top wide receivers. We know it's gonna be the Jets, locked up Corey Davis yesterday. Baltimore still hasn't made a move. And I saw a lot. Corey Davis was projected to go to Baltimore, so now you have to think that they're going to be even more so in on Juju, right? So you
Mm-hmm.
have Baltimore still needy. Green Bay, by all reports, is gonna walk away with one of these receivers. It's just gonna be a matter of which one. They missed out on Davis, so you have to think they're gonna end up with Samuel or Will Fuller, one of the two. So that's another one.
Yeah.
So it's still possible for them to be signed, but I just don't see any like rumblings or rumors saying that one of the top receivers is going to end up in Washington.
Yeah, I mean, granted they have options, right? Because at 19 they could take a wide receiver, but if I was them, I would try to address that now, like to pair with Terry if they can do it now, because depending on the price, of course. But it seems like the wide receiver market maybe isn't what some of these players thought it was. Like Nelson Aguilar got a big deal yesterday, which was surprising to say the least. And then Corey Davis signed for 12 and a half. Aguilar got 13 on 2 years. So I don't know what that means for some of these guys, but Galladay's market apparently yesterday was like 14 to 16. I'd have to think that maybe went up after Aguilar's deal. But at the same time, it's like if some of these teams aren't willing to pay, like probably Juju is the one I think who like has been let down the most. I don't really feel like he's going to get a like gigantic contract. I think it's going to be like a 1 year, $12 million deal, and people are going to be surprised.
Well, look, again, so besides Green Bay, Baltimore, maybe still the Jets could still try to pursue one of the other guys. Like if it's a cheap deal like that for Juju, a 1 year, $12 million, I don't see why Joe Douglas would be opposed to that.
It's possible. Yeah. I wouldn't mind double dipping outside of Galladay because I don't think we're going to do that. So I think that's out of the question.
Jacksonville still contenders because that rumored trade with DJ Chark we talked about yesterday didn't end up going through, at least as of yet.
At least not yet.
So as of right now, we'll see, because that would take Baltimore out of the market for Juju if they would end up with Chark, I'm assuming. But then that would make somebody like Jacksonville inclined to sign a Galladay.
So while we wait for some news here on day 2, because really the only signing has been Hunter Henry, which was a big one. So Pats doubled down on tight ends. The Pats have been by far the biggest active team. I feel like they're making signings every couple hours. Totally nothing I've ever seen before from the Patriots, but they clearly have a plan, somewhat of a plan. Here's the thing. I do like their moves, but some of these guys, like these contracts, are not going to be good in 2 to 3 years. Like I love Jonnu Smith, and yeah, they were paid for him, but I didn't mind that. I like that move. I feel like I like Judon too. A little expensive, but you're going to pay pass rushers. What are you going to pay them? But when you start paying Nelson Aguilar and these guys, and even Kendrick Bourne, who I like, I think they're starting to overpay. But I don't necessarily hate it. It just some people are automatically putting the Patriots back into the Super Bowl window. I feel like they can be a playoff team.
I told you this is a lot like Miami last year, where they're just signing a bunch of average to good guys.
And this might be a lot like I don't want to say it, but Mike McCagnon moves where you get some of the flashy names. Some of these names are going to work. I'm just talking about like the overall haul. I think most of these guys, they signed like 15 guys, I think, or like 10.
I think that's what it is. I don't think it's more so like they're signing superstars or people think that they're signing all these great players. Just they're literally taking everybody off the market.
Yeah. And you know what? They had money to do it, obviously. And what I will say is by far their offense is going to be better, because last year that receiving core was a joke, worst in the league. So they definitely added talent. Like Kendrick Bourne's going to be an upgrade. We don't know if Edelman's coming back or not, but and N'Keal Harry's
just having Jonnu and Hunter Henry on the field at the same time, that'll open up things for Bourne or Aguilar.
Exactly.
Jacoby Myers, whoever.
Help the entire offense. And even you give yourself even more than just Jacoby Myers, he was the entire offense last year. But it is surprising. I mean, I didn't think the Patriots. I honestly figured they were going to sign Hunter Henry before free agency, but I didn't think they were going to like double down on tight ends, especially after they took 2 third-round picks last year who were tight ends. So Bill Belichick, I think, has ruled them out, or he just wants immediate impact from the tight end position. I mean, it's surprising, because if you would have talked to people before free agency and asked who would be like the most active team on day 1 and beginning of day 2, I don't think anybody would have said the Patriots.
This is the first time in like their history that I've ever done this.
Yeah.
And that's why people are saying like there has to be a plan that what they're doing, like I know in our group chat this morning, me and Markel, you guys were talking about like possibly they're thinking about moving up to draft a quarterback just to have that rookie deal on the roster, have your young quarterback behind Cam for a year, and then you have all the money you dished out. There's that. I saw things from yesterday that Bill Belichick, this is his like, last hurrah, where it's like he's throwing shit at a wall and seeing what sticks, and if it doesn't work, he's just going to retire.
I've also heard that
that he's almost 70.
Jimmy Garoppolo rumors are rumbling again because Bill Belichick loves him.
So I don't know, but I don't even think that's not a contract that would be tradable. The 49ers would have to cut him.
The only team that would, because he doesn't have trade value, but if there was one team that would trade for him, it would be the Patriots.
Yeah, but I don't know. I think that's just wishful thinking of everybody saying I think they're going to ride out Garoppolo in the 49ers.
But I don't think the Niners necessarily want to. I think maybe that just being like there's no other option, and his contract is pretty big.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So why wouldn't they, the biggest concern they've had with Garoppolo, first and foremost, there's a few, but the first and foremost is just he's never on the field. That's one, right? You're paying all this money, and he's missed 32 games in 3 years.
Yeah.
So, again, they're at 12, though, so it's possible for one of these quarterbacks to follow them. So it'll be interesting what they do if, like, a Trey Lance or Justin Fields is on the board.
I think they have to take him. Like, I know, all granted, maybe if Rashawn Slater is there, because I know they're in that still win-now mode and, their window. But at the same time, it's like, if you don't believe in your quarterback, realistic chance he's not going to make it 16, 17 games plus the playoffs again. I think, yeah, I would go quarter. If Lance or Fields is on the board, I'm taking them at 12. But knowing what we know about the draft, there's a very good chance none of the top 4 quarterbacks are there. Maybe not even 5. I would say maybe one of them gets there, but most likely the top 4 guys are not going to be there. Maybe Matt Jones makes it to 12. He seems like he would be a Shanahan type of guy because he loves Kirk Cousins. He liked Garoppolo. Like Mac Jones isn't as athletic as those guys, but like I would trust him more than I trust Jimmy Garoppolo right now. I'm talking about like post ACL Jimmy Garoppolo because like I don't think he spins around the pocket now. I feel like he's lost like not even just confidence, but like more. It's like more of the mental side of not coming back. And it's not that he doesn't want to take hits. He's kind of a different player. And obviously he still gets hurt as well. So
at the end of the day, the 49ers got him for a great deal, right? They only gave up a second-round pick, and this is when Jimmy G was still, the undefeated substitute for Tom Brady,
and he came.
He's going to be the predecessor,
right, to end that year when he joined. San Fran. So like, and he did bring them to a Super Bowl. I mean, the roster was stacked, but he still did it. Like I'm not taking that away from Garoppolo. I'm just saying like right now in time, we know what the amount of games he misses. I just think Kyle Shanahan is personally done with him, and if they can upgrade, they will. It's just the question of, can they, realistically?
Because it'd be a shame to waste the roster that they have. It's already starting to fall apart little by little.
Yeah, and this is what happens when you don't have stability in the NFL. Like we talk about, like how fast windows close. Like when you have a quarterback who keeps getting hurt, the windows like it's closing like quickly. So. But let's talk about a team that I'm surprised has not made really any moves outside of signing Ohio State guys, like low quality, high depth. Jacksonville Jaguars, the team with the most cap space in the NFL. What do you think's going on there?
Maybe it's just like Urban Meyer, he just got hired, right? And it's just he doesn't want to spend all of his money right away if he's not for sure. But I don't get how like you don't bring in like being how bad your offensive line was, how do you not bring in or at least attempt? Obviously, like so with Tooney, like I get it. If you're going to be offered $20 million a year, 5-year contract.
No, what was it? It was 16 per year, I think, right?
Oh, 16.
It was 5 years, 80 million, I think.
Okay, well, whatever it was.
They also guaranteed like 60 of it or something. Like it was okay. He was the highest paid guard outside of Sheriff, who got the tag.
Yeah, the point being like if you're getting paid the same numbers from every team in the league, like getting offered that, why would you not go to protect Patrick Mahomes and go to that organization, right? So that's out of everybody else's control. Like that's just Kansas City making a power move. No guard in the league would have turned that down. So, but then I saw the reports when Lindsley signed with the Chargers, right? Mm-hmm. That Joe Douglas didn't even make an offer to him. I don't know how true that is.
Before I do that, let's just talk about Jacksonville right now because I am shocked that even though it's not like I'm not even talking about like high quality guys. I'm talking about like we can't like it's just weird that they haven't signed, for a team that has the most cap space, a lot of needs, especially defensively.
Probably the most needs, Ryan, because all you have on offense is DJ Chark. That's your only playmaker, James Robinson. And what do you do to address your offense? You bring in Carlos Hyde.
I'm surprised they weren't in on the tight end market for Trevor Lawrence, like Hunter Henry. That's where I was thinking maybe him or John.
Everybody's saying, a quarterback's best friend is a tight end, especially, a rookie quarterback. So you would think after Jonnu Smith Jonnu Smith went to the Patriots right away. You could just chalk that up as, look, that's Bill Belichick getting the job done, whatever. But you still had Hunter Henry for a full day. There's 24 hours you could have brought him in.
Yeah, and they should have shifted the gears to that, like you said, because John was one of the first signings yesterday. So you had it all day yesterday and last night to kind of close the deal. And that would have been a great sign. I'm surprised that he actually left the Chargers. I feel like that would have been, a great get for Trevor. But do you think Jacksonville today will start getting in on the market and maybe they're waiting out some value for wide receiver? That could be possible. All 4 kind of the top guys are still there. So if they do end up with one of those and maybe they were in on the safety, right? But he went to Cleveland, John Johnson.
Yeah, so that's not something you should do when you're picking first overall in the draft. You're taking what people are saying to be a prodigy quarterback, and you should be doing what Bill Belichick's doing and being aggressive.
Yeah, I wouldn't say as aggressive.
I'm not saying sign the whole market, but I'm just saying bring in guys.
Yeah, especially defensively.
Even if you bring in a bad contract or two, like you have the money to recover from it.
I would have tried to sign Dalvin Tomlinson, who obviously signed with the Vikings last night, because the defense line class is not good, and they have their interior defense line is not good either. So I would have tried that. Obviously, they can't do that anymore. It just that was the team that was shocking to me, because Jacksonville typically kind of always make that or make a big splash, and maybe it's coming. Like we still have there's still tier 1 guys out there. It's just surprising they didn't do it on the first day. But let's bring back your point. I know you were really pissed off with Joe Douglas yesterday, at least in the afternoon. And Peter's not even a Jet fan, but he does like the Jets. I was upset with not getting Thuney, but as we got closer to free agency, I wasn't expecting it like I was last year, because I honestly thought the Chargers were going to swoop in when I seen they freed up money, a couple days ago, but it ended up being the Chiefs. And like Peter said, unfortunately, when you don't have a quarterback or a stable franchise reputation, as of this moment, no, a player who's getting paid the highest in their market is not coming to the Jets unless we paid him $2 or $3 million more. Like Thuney got the destination and the money he was looking for. Like there was no way the Jets were even the Jets would have had to offer him $20 million.
That I understood, but I didn't understand the not pursuing Lindsley.
Yeah, I mean, I disagree with that with Douglas, but at the same time, he signed the best center in free agency last year with McGovern. So I guess he's still – and I'm not saying McGovern's comparable to Lindsley. He's not. Corey Lindsley's a top 3 center, probably number 1 last year. But McGovern, in my opinion, can be like the 9th or 10th best center. I didn't hate McGovern. He didn't have a great year, but I feel like he's a better fit for the system, whether he was playing guard or center. But, I mean, I understand. I mean, that's what I wanted to do too. I wanted to pivot to that. It's like, all right, we didn't get Thuney, let's go get Lindsley. But at the same time, and was it like frustrating that we didn't at least call him to find out what was the price and what we could have, or maybe we could have got him. But at the same time, it's like he is also the highest paid center now. I don't know if he's going to pick the Jets over the Chargers, but at the same point, I would have called. So I agree with you on that. I wasn't as mad as you on that, because I still knew that the pass rushing market was out there. If the Jets would have missed out on one of the 7 or 6 pass rushers, then I would have been in your boat where I'm like,
no, I don't want to take it away, because he finished the day off good. I think Corey Davis was. I'd rather give Corey Davis that money than I would Will Fuller, right? So I'm happy he didn't go that direction. I think they brought in if not Galladay, who should be number 1 for everybody.
Let's not bash him yet.
No, I know. It's just, if you're paying somebody that money, you want them to be on the field. And Corey Davis has had his injuries, but what he showed last year when he's on the field, and he could be on the field more consistently than Will Fuller. Obviously, the goal is Kenny Galladay, but maybe the price is too high.
So Carl Lawson, I'm not sure if we were on live for this, but he was my number 1 pass rusher outside of Shaq Barrett, because I never thought Shaq really didn't hit the market. He was on there for like 5 minutes. But out of all the realistic options who like left their destination yesterday, I thought the Bengals got really cheap, and then they ended up signing Hendrickson, which made no sense. For more money. I mean, less guarantees, but more money. And that's why the Bengals are known as like a cheap franchise, because they don't really retain their own. And then I love the Carl Lawson signing. I've loved him since coming out. So, and I think he's going to be a beast in this solid defense. Like, and the good thing here is, like, unlike Cincinnati, right? Because Geno Atkins really wasn't playing last year. He was kind of like a rotational piece. The Bengals defense line was not very good last year. Carl Lawson was the number 1 guy. Here, all the attention's going on Quinnen Williams. So Carl Lawson's going to I think he's going to feast here. I think this is going to be a signing. Someone mentioned it yesterday. I think it was like Field Yates, where it's like Zardarius Smith from the Ravens, where he went to the Packers and kind of got more recognition. I feel like that could happen, or even Shaq Barrett when he left Denver to go to Tampa. Now, I'm not expecting Carl Lawson to hit 19.5 sacks in his first year or whatever, second year here, but Carl Lawson's going to go from like 5 sacks or whatever he had last year, 6, and a ton of pressure, to I think he's going to hit 10 sacks every year, assuming he's on the field healthy.
But the thing is, even if like there's a year like this year where it was 5.5 and you don't really hit the sack numbers that you want to see, it doesn't mean he's not impacting the game, because he's always in the backfield.
His pressures were like top every category that mattered, like in terms of disruptions, pressure, everything, like hits, tackles for losses. It was all in the top 5 of pass rushers.
So he had to be, besides Shaq Barrett, like you said, he had to be number 1, because I told you yesterday after live, we were talking for a little bit, and you were asking me, Trey Hendrickson, how do you feel? What do you think is a good price for him is going to be? And I told him, like, look, he's not going to hit the numbers that he hit this year, right?
Yep.
And on top of that, I told you I wouldn't even give him, if you're talking 12, 13, what you thought he was going to get. I told you what I say, like 10 million I would give him If I had to overpay, I'd give 12. But anything over 12, I don't think he's worth it.
What did you end up getting? Was it 15 or 16 with the Bengals
15,
per year?
yeah, I think 15. But this first year, he's promised the way the signings work, or I don't know what the voided, because he could be voided too. All these contracts this year could be voided. I don't know if the NFL is going to look into that next offseason.
They
Pushing
definitely
all this
are.
money into the future.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just
but Trey Henderson will do $20 million this year.
Yeah, I was shocked at that. I feel like they should have signed Carl Lawson back. But it is what it is. I'm happy as a Jet fan. I thought they were going to franchise tag him. So happy at the market. And I was sweating it out when like all the pass rushers were signing and there's only 2 guys left. It was him and Hendrickson. And I was like, oh man, the Jets have to get one of these guys like right now. And then we ended up getting Carl Lawson around like 8 p.m. So day one really changed from like late afternoon to nighttime in literally a span of an hour with the Jets. But we also had, what did you think of, I think, like, what was the craziest deal that you thought happened yesterday? I feel like we're going to agree on this. But the Leonard Floyd deal?
Yeah, that was
17
as
on
soon as he
average.
signed that, I texted in our chat and I go, what are the Rams doing? They need to get their priorities straight.
Like, I understand retaining him because he was good last year. And I feel like when you have Aaron Donald, obviously, like, remember Dante Fowler, he also was good.
Yeah, I remember.
But it's like, they're good, but 17 million is you're asking the guy to be great and like elite.
Right. Where do they come up with that money from? They're gonna have to make cuts all along the defense.
I don't know. I mean, did you see that they're restructuring? They're restructuring today. Ramsey, Donald, and I think Cooper Kupp. So they're trying to figure it out.
Like, and that's what every team in the league's doing. It's restructuring deals and then pushing all this money into the future. And Bleacher gave Lawson an A and Corey Davis.
Yeah, I agree with that. I do think Carl Lawson's an A plus. Corey Davis, I gave like a B plus. But the more that I sit on it, I like it. Like, it wasn't a guy that we were expecting. But this is another thing. Before we move on from the Jets, how great is it that no one has any idea about what Joe Douglas is doing? Like, we heard Trey Henderson all day, right? It was like rumors. The Jets signed Carl Lawson out of nowhere. Like, I love that. Whenever it gets out from the Jets, they want it to get out. Like, it's no more nonsense. Nobody has any idea what's going on there outside.
Yeah, I know. Ever since Joe Douglas's tenure, we never heard like any rumors when it came to anything, right? I guess the most you could say is the Jamal Adams rumors, but that was more Adams camp leaking stuff out, right?
Yeah, that was his leaking stuff.
Yeah, so besides that, nobody had any idea about anything, right? And now all of a sudden, for the first time in Joe Douglas's tenure as general manager, we start hearing, 8 teams are interested in Sam Darnold, and Sam Darnold could go for a second or even a first. Rappaport, right? Like, so it's.
I'm not sure if that's true.
I think he's doing a good. But it's just the fact of driving up the price and getting the most he possibly can.
Douglas is going to get the most he can for whatever player. Like, we know that from his point of view. It just so the Bears. Let's pivot to them because they're the team that's still trying for a quarterback. They were in on Jameis if the Saints weren't signing him. I seen that yesterday, and they were also, I believe, called about Fitzpatrick. So they are clearly trying to do something. Obviously, these aren't like fantastic moves. Jameis would have been fun, but we all kind of knew he was going back to the Saints. Fitzpatrick, man, it feels like they're going any route but Trubisky. He's like really the last option possible, like the fallback. Everything else doesn't pan out, which might end up happening, honestly.
So, do you think they make a move on Sam?
Well, not like Washington. We can almost eliminate now from Sam, which everyone thought was like
right now. It's what? It's Chicago. It's maybe Seattle.
I'm not rooting out. Yes, Seattle. They trade Wilson, which I don't think will happen. But apparently, Pete Carroll's high on Darnold because they. USC connection. USC. So whatever, that'll work for me. I'm still not counting out the Niners. I know they got kind of ruled out, but there's been there's a lot of smoke there. And I do feel like Jimmy Garoppolo will not be a Niner. Don't know why. Maybe I'm wrong. I just feel like he's going to the Patriots some way, somehow.
The thing with that is even if you ride out, like it's a team like the 49ers where you plan on starting Jimmy G, and if you trade for Darnold, you don't plan for him to start or anything. Because he's not going to be renewed, whether let's say the Jets keep him next year, right? He's not going to get extended.
Yep.
You don't want to run the risk of, if you like him as much as let's say Pete Carroll does, right? You don't want to run the risk of letting him sign wherever he wants or to the best deal. If you bring him in the building now, it's just easier working with him and the agent and the system, and because he's going to be more inclined to stay whoever trades for him. So if you
Yeah,
want him in the building, getting him a year early is not the end of the
it's also
world.
like a 2-year deal because whoever team gets him isn't going to pick up his option for the 5th year. Like
Yeah,
it's 17 is a lot, but for quarterback money, it's not that crazy.
so realistically, we could say like the QB needy teams like Chicago, like are front runners for Darnold. At the end of the day, it could be any team in the league who is looking ahead at the quarterback position, who's not happy with who they're starting with this year and wants to move on in a year.
My only thing is like let's like branch out other than the Jets, but we'll finish on this. It's like, when Washington happened with Fitzpatrick, that's the only reason why I don't want to hold on to Darnold. Is like I kind of want all these options on the table. I don't want to like limit ourselves to one or two teams. I mean, still, when you have more than one team, it is a market, but I would prefer to have multiple options to pick from. That's like I'll end there, but I do feel like Douglas will maximize whatever it is. Maybe we're not getting the offers we want. That's a realistic possibility. I don't know how people watch Sam Darnold play. I mean, you can believe in him, like watch his college film and then say like, okay, we can work with this. And it was all Adam Gase. So that could be a realistic, that's probably what's happening to anybody that wants him. They're going to sell themselves on that. But it is hard. I mean, if I was a general manager and I watched like 10 minutes of Sam Darnold play last year, I would not be giving up a day 1 or 2 pick.
We have some kind of news here. Ravens are re-signing linebacker Tyus Bowser, 4-year, $22 million. $12 million in guarantees.
Yeah, good player. And Seahawks are making a hard push to keep Shaquille Griffin, but he has 2 other strong offers, and we'll decide soon.
Yeah. So Ryan, that source we found yesterday, right? That Twitter page, the Twitter guy that we found that wasn't verified. He tweeted right before we went live. I told you he tweeted.
He actually had it over. So when we not from us, of course, but I'm sure people just seen him across Twitter. But while we were like reporting whatever he said about Orlando Brown and DJ Chark, he was at like 1,000 followers, and now he's over what? He definitely hit over. It's like 2,000 and something right now.
He's 2,200 right now.
So he basically got 1,000 followers in a day.
I don't think if I show it to the screen, it's going to show, but it's at CJ Golson, Golson. And
he's been active,
like you said,
he got the running back right, Carlos Hyde, yesterday too. I'd seen.
Yeah, he's getting a lot of predictions right, and he's also breaking news. Like on Jonnu Smith, he hit like 50 minutes prior to Schefter, right? And right before we went live, he said that the Patriots aren't done in the running back market, and they're going to look for players. Since James White's leaving, they're going to look for players like Leonard Fournette or what was the other name? Or Chris Carson. And now Pro Football Talk just tweeted that the Patriots are interested and are pursuing Chris Carson or Fournette. So he was an hour early on that as well.
Give them Fournette, please. I don't want to deal with Chris Carson.
Yeah, so he has a lot of Patriot insiders just based off of yesterday as well, but he also has other things. So like, what is this?
But, yeah. Anyway, who do you think?
Yeah,
I'll give my answer first, but while I give mine, really think about it. Obviously, there wasn't a ton of moves when you compare every single team. Maybe a team only made 1 or 2 moves, but who do you think was like the overall winner of like day 1 of free agency? My answer for this, I'll go first. Maybe you may agree with me. I'm going the Chargers. I feel like they didn't have that many holes to begin with, and obviously, if there was one gigantic hole, it was the entire offensive line. And they cut Trey Turner because he got hurt, and it just didn't work out for that 1 year. And they ended up getting probably at least a top 3 center in football, Corey Linsley for Herbert. And they got the Steelers guy, Feitler. He's a pretty versatile guard. He plays guard or tackle. I feel like he's going to start for them. And they got him at a reasonable contract. Like it was like $7 million per year on average. So I feel like those are kind of 2 big moves especially with an offensive line market. It was very top heavy, the interior. It was like Linsley and Thuney. So they ended up getting, one of the premium, picks or positions for them, premium priced guys, which is not easy to do. But I guess things are easier when you have like a quarterback like Herbert who just had a monster year. But still, that's overall credit, and hopefully, as long as they stay healthy, because Bulaga's still there, a right tackle. I'm sure they're still going to address it at 13 in the draft. Like
I think they're going to take a tackle. Yeah,
that's what we're expecting. So to be able to do that in one offseason, because it is hard. There's no way you can rebuild an entire offensive line in one offseason. But to be able to land, I feel like they're going to have 2 great guys, and we'll see what happens with the Steelers guy.
But the point of the matter is, in one offseason, it's going to be significantly better than what it was last year.
Yeah, significantly better.
That's the point of the matter. It doesn't have to be top of the league, but it's going to be significantly better than what it was.
Yeah,
and that's all you could ask for.
The jump it's gone for, it's going to be from 32, 31 all the way to 16 or something, which is a massive improvement.
Yeah. So, obviously, I don't want to say. Obviously, a lot of people are going to say the Patriots, and to an extent, it's true. Just because, regardless of the money that they dished out and the guaranteed
Yep.
money,
How much
when
better
you
they
bring
got.
in that many guys, right, and when you bring in most of the market, you have to assume. But if we're going like the underrated teams, like you said, even if it was just a signing,
Yep.
honestly, the Cleveland Browns bringing in John Johnson is going to instantly, just like how we said the Chargers instantly going to have an offensive line. That Cleveland secondary, just by adding that one safety, is going to significantly be better. That was a major hole for them, and they could still address it. They could use a number two corner, a better number two corner, but that's something you could address mid rounds of the draft. And I know they're still looking for one more edge rusher, but these are things again you could address in the draft or still finish up. The corners are still out there in free agency, so you draft an edge, sign one more corner, and you're looking like the favorites to win the division. So
Yeah,
I'm gonna go with Cleveland.
talk about the Browns today. I don't think we mentioned them yesterday at all, other than the signing. But that was a hell of a signing, like you said, John Johnson. I loved it for them.
And not expensive.
No, pretty
Not expensive at all.
reasonable deal. Definitely a position to need. They're also getting Delpit back, the LSU safety they took in round 2 because he missed all of last year. So like that's also going to be hopefully a fun pairing. Cleveland, ever since they got Barry at GM, it feels like they've been making like smart, calculated moves. Like even last year when they signed Austin Hooper, like it was a surprise because they already had Njoku, they had a couple of tight ends, and then they also drafted Harrison Bryant, who's like in the 4th round. But they also had like a plan for all these tight ends. Like they were using like a 2 tight end package almost every single game. So like it feels like the Browns are making like they always have a plan for their moves. Like I just feel like ever since they got their new GM, it's like things have definitely been on the up for Cleveland. And like you said, they could easily. I don't want to say easily, but it wouldn't shock me if they won the North.
Because look, on offense, you really don't have to add any other positions. You already rebuilt your offensive line. If
Would
you
you
want
keep
to add in, what happened?
Would you just keep Beckham? I think they are going to keep him, but I'm just saying, would you keep him?
Look, if I'm any team in the league, I don't think the Giants should trade Beckham to begin with. I don't think, and realistically, compared to the wide receiver market, what's he making? 15 million a year?
Yes.
Dude, I'll take Beckham post injury for
15,
15 million.
16. Yeah.
15, 16. When people like Nelson Aguilar are making 13, I wouldn't trade Odell. So I would keep Odell, regardless of what they do with that, you still have all those tight ends. You still have Jarvis Landry. You have your two, duos at running back with Chubb and Hunt, as long as you can keep them together. But even if you lose Hunt, let's say, right?
Well, they just extended.
He's extended. Yeah, I know, but I'm saying like even if you lose one eventually, like realistically, you only need one. 2 is just a luxury, right? So their offense is fine. If you want to add just a depth at guard, I guess you could do that. But it's not. I wouldn't say it's a primary need.
I think he's talking about Shaquille. I had seen yesterday that the Bengals were in, but then they just signed Awuzie, the Dallas corner, so I think they're out. No, I don't think we did. We do. They didn't mention any other teams besides Seattle. But I mean, do you have any predictions?
Try to look up now for teams that are interested.
Yeah, I didn't see anything. At least on the first tweet, didn't mention any.
I'm seeing the Vikings could possibly be interested. Yeah, they put out an offer. And the Vikings also put an offer in on Carl Lawson yesterday. They put an offer in on Hendrickson, Lawson, and Griffin.
So it'd be interesting to see where he lands. I feel like if Seattle are offering him a comparable deal, he might just want to return to Seattle if the money's close. Because it says Seattle's making a push to get it done. But obviously there's 2 teams in the mix. Peter's saying the Vikings are one of them. He's a good player. I'm not sure if I'm willing. Like, how much would you be willing to pay him? Because he's probably going to get like top of the market kind of money. Like he's a person. 25. It's just like I'm not sure he's actually like a top 5, top 10 corner.
I think it's more so of him being just the best of it, or at least one of the best available linebackers that are left at the moment. So it's more so you're going to pay just to get whoever's left than it is pay for top of their position in the league.
Yep.
I think the Vikings, if not the Seahawks, probably the Vikings. I don't think after the Bengals gave Trey Hendrickson what they gave him, I don't think they're going to dish out any more to somebody like
they just signed Awuzie before he came on from Dallas, and that feels like them letting go of William Jackson. He's also the top of the corner market, so I feel like he's out of Cincinnati right now. If you were considering signing him back, I don't know if like Cincinnati always seem to do this. Like they seem to, like we mentioned with Carl Lawson, it's like it's not that they don't value their own, but they're kind of cheap. Like they go like an alternative route. And the reality is, like last year, they signed member Trey Waynes, who I think he ended up
Yep.
missing the entire year last year.
If
So
you
they gave
actually
him,
look at their plan, yeah, every single time they draft people, they let them walk,
yeah,
and then they end up bringing people in. Like for an example, for any Saint fan watching, Von Bell. You wait for a team to draft somebody, not bring them back after their rookie contract's up, and then you
mhm.
bring them in. You're the one who brings them in.
No, I know. And Von Bell made sense because I don't think they had outside of Jesse Bates, they needed like a strong safety. So that was a
But
good fit.
besides Geno Atkins, who do they really keep that they draft? Do you
No,
really think they're
Dunlap
gonna?
before he was traded, Dunlap for like
Okay,
8 years. But for the most part, you're right. Bengals, especially when contracts get like very high, top of the market, they tend to like let those guys walk and then sign a replacement like the same day, which is weird because it's like some of these deals are very comparable. Like if you were asking me last year if I wanted William Jackson or Trey Waynes to the long term, I would have just extended William Jackson and let Trey Waynes go elsewhere in free agency. I feel like they don't look at their roster and like look at the future about like what to expect and like who should we keep. They're very year to year, and then they're like, all right, if this player is this amount of money, we're gonna pivot and go sign X, Y, and Z for
and look, at the end of the day,
us.
so like I know Jeff fans were, obviously you wanted either Thuney or Lindsley, but at the end of the day, like you don't have the worst offensive line in the league, and you could still address it in the draft,
Yeah,
right? So, but for Cincinnati fans, like your offensive line is so bad, you needed to do both. You needed to bring in at least one person in free agency, and you needed to address it in the draft at pick number 5. So now you missed out on free agency, and you didn't have to be top of the line guys either. Like if you just missed out on them, it's whatever. But not only did you miss out on them, but then we had like the middle tier guys that got locked up by Carolina in the beginning of free agency.
well, there's a few that like the Bengals especially, and the Jets should be in on this too. Like these guys aren't necessarily elite anymore or very good, but they're serviceable at this point, and that you can work with that and then draft and hope that the rookie either steps in middle of the season or in year 2. But yeah, like you said, besides the top two, Lindsley and Thuney, like the Ravens got ahead of the entire free agency market yesterday and signed Kevin Zeitler.
Exactly.
That he used to play for Cincinnati. A lot of people were maybe expecting him to go back to Cincy because that would have been a good pairing for Burrow. Needs it the entire that besides Jonah Williams, that entire offensive line needs an overhaul. Like you said, it's not enough to just pick 5, whether it's Sewell or Slater. That's not enough. It's a start. It's a big start, but it's not. All the other positions are position in need. Like they can sign a Gabe Jackson or a Trey Turner for now. Like they need
I
to
know.
do. Like they need to do
But
it.
Ryan, look, all these teams around the league, they're like getting ready. So let's say like for Carolina, they're getting ready to bring in their franchise guys. So they're getting the offensive line set from now. So they come into a good situation. All these teams are doing that, right? The Jets are attempting to do that. They started with Becton. They brought in Fant last offseason, McGovern, like you said. And even though it didn't work out, Van Roden, like Joe Douglas tried to bring in guys. Cincinnati saw the number 1 pick, Joe Burrow, go down with a gruesome, like it was a horrible injury. Is he even going to be ready by week 1? I'm assuming he will be, but I remember when it first happened, like we weren't sure.
It looks like he's going to be, but we can't confirm that right now. But I think
Yeah.
he is
So,
ahead.
but how do you see that and not give up? That's priority number 1.
Yeah.
And if you're going to let people walk like Carl Lawson on the defensive side, which you need again a new defense because you just don't have enough talent there. You give all your money to Trey Hendrickson. You're focusing on that. Where's the help for Joe Burrow?
Yeah, even if, like you said, like even though the Panthers necessarily didn't get like big name guys, at least they had a plan. They identified a few players who are either going to be spot starters, but anything that's going to upgrade the offensive line, they did because they're gearing toward either they're going to get some new quarterback in here, some hopefully a rookie. We'll see what they do, but the Bengals should have been on top of this. Even if they were going to let some of these guys walk, it would have been like so. I would have justified them letting a guy like Carl Lawson or even William Jackson walk if that priority was then shifting over to the offensive line. Like if the Bengals were able to land a Joe Thuney, we're talking very differently about them today. But it seems like they just didn't have a plan. They just kind of like let the market, like they let other teams get in front of them, and then some of these guys like are already gone, and now it's like we're on to like we're not even on option B anymore. We're on plan C and D, you know? And it's just like, and if they keep on waiting around, man, because there's the thing about offensive linemen, every team in the league basically needs offensive linemen, or at least depth.
Yeah.
So you need to.
You can never have too many.
Yeah, you need the offense line should be, and it was yesterday. Like, there's a reason why Joe Thuney was signed. He was one of the big first major signings. It was a couple hours in, of course, but he was one of the major ones. Corey Lindsey signed an hour later. Like, all the premium positions go, as soon as possible. That's why edge rusher went right after that, because those are the positions teams are willing to pay. You have to get in front of everybody else, and the Bengals just weren't willing to.
So, speaking of that, even yesterday, I just want to go find the numbers real quick before I talk about it. Let me see it. The Saints brought back a backup offensive lineman, but in all reality, when we had a lot of injuries,
right?
Hurst, yeah. I just wanted to find the numbers.
People liked him.
I loved him.
There was a couple
when he came in, he played better than our starters.
There was a couple fan bases who were commenting when the Saints signed him back, like, "Oh man, I wanted this guy." So
yeah, like, because he's so versatile. You could play him at a tackle position, or you could play him at guard. Like, he could do either or, and he plays well. Like, he's a starter in this league, and I don't know, he's our backup. I think he should be starting over Pete right now. And I can't find the numbers, but I see that
I think it was like a 3-year deal with like $9 million.
Cheap. Yeah, it wasn't bad.
It was like 3 or 4 per year. It wasn't like it was a good deal, I think.
Yeah, so
versatile.
$3 million a year. Yep, $5 million guaranteed, and can earn up to $13.5 million if he's a starter over that time, which I expect him to be because of how good he played. So you see the effort. Saints with no cap room have priorities elsewhere. They had to get Jameis, whatever. That was before the Jameis signing, so they made sure they got that done before even Jameis.
Yeah,
so I don't know.
These are all fair points. Like, especially a team like even the Chiefs, man. I know they ended up getting Thuney, and they ended up, freeing up cap space because they restructured, a bunch of guys. But a team, and they had to cut both their starting tackles. But you've seen what their priority was. The Chiefs, before signing Thuney and then cutting both their tackles, the Chiefs and the Bengals were in very similar situations with their offensive line. Whereas, like, we don't have anybody that we really like. Maybe one guy on each, but granted, the Chiefs have Mahomes, so like that's unfair. He's not going to sign with the Bengals. I get that, but it's just like everyone gets the point. But
what happened? Say something.
It was echoing for a second.
Yeah, I had to switch earphones.
Yeah, it's all good. So we were talking. Obviously, we brought up Jacksonville, but another team that we didn't bring up, I don't even think we mentioned yesterday, that's been quiet. And you had mentioned them when you referenced what they did last year to New England. But the Dolphins, another team with, I think, the 3rd or 4th highest cap, or maybe not, but they have a decent amount of cap space. It's definitely in the top 10. And they have been no signing so far. But they are interested in David Andrews from the Patriots to play center for them.
Yeah.
So
I think they're going to roll out with Tua, but do you really think that maybe just seeing the quiet free agency, they're saving some of that cap for what they're going to have to pay Watson if they make a move on Watson? Because the more that time goes on, especially in free agency, it's looking at the Jets and Joe Douglas won't do it.
Yeah, like I said when we were texting yesterday after the live, I just didn't think Watson really made sense here, and I've been saying that for weeks. In terms of Joe Douglas's point of view, his philosophy, I did feel like Miami's more realistic, but I don't think, and it could still happen, but I don't think them making a lack of moves has anything to do with Deshaun Watson or Tua. I just kind of think maybe they're being more calculated at the moment, like maybe waiting out the market and trying to get bargain deals. I know last year they kind of went the Patriots approach where they were signing Agba going straight away, Eric Flowers. Like, they were just kind of going in on a few different players. But, like, I'm just surprised, especially when they got rid of Van Noy, right? And then they traded for McKinney. Apparently there was heavy rumors that, okay, we got rid of Shaq Lawson as part of that trade, right? We're going to go out and then we're going to sign one of the 7 edge rushers, one of the top guys. And that's what I thought Miami was doing. But maybe they were in on the market. Maybe it was too expensive, because every pass rusher yesterday got, I believe, 13 or more, or 14 actually, because Aquaro signed back. So every player that actually left the team, I think Judon was the cheapest. I think at like 14. Everybody else was like 14, 15, 16 million average per year. So maybe that's why they didn't get involved. But just a team like Miami, I'm just kind of shocked that they no signings as of right now.
Well, yeah, not even just on the defensive line pass rusher, but granted the wide receiver market's moving slowly, but
Yeah.
no, not even rumors right now of who they're interested in or who they offered to. Offensive lineman, again, doesn't have to be the top tier guys, but now we came out that David Andrews, because obviously all the signs that New England made, you're thinking maybe. I don't think New England could afford to let him go. They can't lose Thuney and Andrews. So I still think there's a chance he stays in New England.
Mm-hmm.
But it's good to see if you're a Miami fan that at least Miami's trying to pursue him, right?
Addressing the offensive line.
Need the help.
Nothing.
And again, I know like you have them going wide receiver with the 3rd overall pick, but if I'm Miami, again, I'd rather sign somebody like Kenny Golladay. Regardless, you think he's the same as Devonta Parker, and you could use a speed guy. Granted, all of those things.
Yeah.
But I would personally, if I'm Miami, would feel more comfortable taking Sewell at 3. But whatever they decide to do is what they decide to do. Oh, finally, Jaguars make a splash, landing former Seahawks cornerback Shaquille Griffin.
Wow.
I don't know why it's a corner, but 3-year deal, 44.5 million with 29 guaranteed. Yeah.
No, not his brother. The corner. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this,
no,
it was between the Vikings, Seattle. I'm guessing Jaguars were the 3rd team.
We didn't even hear the Jaguars' name though, so that's again one of these dark horse teams that jumped in.
This is a good signing for them. We talked about how many holes that they would have, in my opinion, the biggest holes when it comes to defense, around the league. This is, and it's actually, I love the age here. Like you're signing him, he's 25 right now. I believe he'll turn 26 this year. This is not like this is not a guy leaving his prime. It's a guy entering his prime. So,
and opposite of him is the guy you just took in the 1st round.
It's 15 per year, right? Or 14 and it's 3 years, 44 and a half. So I like the deal. I'm shocked that maybe Seattle probably wasn't willing to go there, but Jacksonville, you have the money, you have the need. I like the pairing, C.J. Henderson and now Shaquille Griffin.
It doesn't solve all of their problems, but it's a start.
Yeah, it's a big start because I feel like they are on offense right now and they are on defense. They still have some needs, of course, and I honestly feel like their draft might be more, it might be more pivoted to Trevor Lawrence and like surrounding him most of the draft. So if that's what their plan is, where they're going to take most of their draft selections on offense, whether it's wide receiver, tight end, running back or offensive line, I don't mind them spending money on defense.
So now here's the thing, right? You're Seattle. You just lose your top corner.
Yeah, we just seen it.
Jackson Griffin.
Yeah. You think this will be the start now? This should be the start now of the corner market. Maybe William Jackson will be next, and because there's a lot of we talked about
the dominoes going to fall.
Our free agency preview, but like I feel like a lot of the top 10 slot corners are all available in free agency. Obviously, none of them have signed yet, but maybe this will be the domino that kind of kicks it off.
So let me ask you something now. You're Seattle. You just lost your top corner.
Sherman to Seattle. I would like to see that. I mean, I'm kind of hoping Sherman might come to the Jets. I'm not expecting that, but he talked highly of Salah. I've said the Raiders. I always thought Sherman to the Raiders, but if Shaquille Griffin just left, Seattle would make a ton of sense to reunite as long as did he end on bad terms there? Because I remember he got hurt, right? Like he tore his Achilles and then they wouldn't sign him back or they wouldn't offer him.
Everybody who left there, even Earl Thomas. Is Earl Thomas still playing football? Is he going into retirement? What's he doing?
We haven't heard from him since he got released in like August.
I know. I thought he would get signed right away.
He said Sherman to Seattle, and is that true?
I think he's just predicting it because that's not coming out.
He said he would be open. Yeah, I mean, Seattle certainly need the help now.
So that's what I'm saying. So you're Seattle. You lost your number one corner. Do you bring in, let's say, somebody like Sherman, right? Or do you panic and start, like, if you're Pete Carroll, like, look, that's just another hole we have now. We have no first-round pick to address any of our holes, right? They could still use help on the defensive line. They could still use help on the offensive line. They could still use, again, now a corner. So do you think they're more inclined to, pursue a trade for Wilson just to get more draft picks and start filling out the roster again, starting fresh?
I don't think Russell Wilson's traded like at least this offseason. If we're still talking about this next year, where it's like, okay, Seattle made the playoffs and it's another first round exit or a second round exit, and Russell Wilson just fell, he got sacked, whatever, or hit so many times, then possibly. But
But
Like,
what do they do if they don't bring in Sherman?
well, there's talks. I don't know if he's linked to them, but Patrick Peterson's kind of down to 3 teams, and they mentioned he's open to a reunion with Arizona, and the other 2 teams that he's interested in are 2 playoff teams. So Seattle fit that mold. I'm not sure if they are involved with him, but he's a possibility. I don't know. I mean, how much money? Seattle doesn't have a lot of cap space either.
Thomas is a free agent,
Thomas
but he's
is a
still.
free agent. Yeah, I know he's a free agent. I just don't think he's going to be signing anywhere or playing anywhere. I feel like he would have gotten an opportunity or a call last year, especially maybe if he even took time off. You don't think a playoff team would have called him at the end of the year and tried to get him on like a vet minimum deal to enter the playoffs?
Or maybe he just didn't want to.
That could be it. But
Maybe
we haven't heard anything about him.
off.
Have we heard? I've heard nothing about Earl Thomas, right? About making a possible comeback.
No rumors. Nobody has talked about Earl Thomas in months. I'm thinking, because I saw he posted something on Instagram. I follow him, and I was just like, what is he doing? He's on vacation. He seems to be having fun. So I was like, was this like an early retirement kind of thing? Like, are you even thinking about football?
Wonder if I know he didn't pan out there, but because he got hurt last year, and it wasn't like, even though they didn't trade much for him, like Quentin Dunbar was supposed to be an exciting addition last year, like a addition who obviously he had the off-field issue with DeAndre Baker, but he got cleared and everything from that. I wonder if they would just kind of re-sign him. I know it didn't work out the 1 year, but like I would maybe just try to run it back, especially if he's going to be cheap.
You know what team is not making any moves, and I'm not sure about their cap situation. Maybe that is playing a role in it, but should be making a role for whether it's corners, safety. They have so many holes, especially defensively.
Yeah.
What are the Philadelphia Eagles doing this offseason?
Well, they can't do anything, I don't think.
Yeah, they brought back Brandon Graham, but they re-signed him. But I don't get. There's no moves, and they have so many holes.
Yeah, but the Eagles they were in the Saints kind of not as bad, but that kind of territory where they were the second most.
So just kind of
yeah, it was like negative 33 million. So the Eagles, they're not going to be making many moves. They were interested in John Johnson yesterday. That's what I was
saying. So like that's a position of need. We were talking about Earl Thomas, so I just thought of them.
Yeah, and obviously Jalen Mills left to New England, so they were kind of, but they weren't real suitors because they couldn't offer him any money, like realistic money. That I know he got a pretty good deal with Cleveland. Cleveland got a good deal with him, but the Eagles didn't have money to offer. So,
but they were so bad last year, and they've done nothing so far to improve their roster. I wonder where Galladay lands. He must be waiting to see the other wide receiver offer deal.
His demand. I'm sure Galladay was a happy man when Nelson Aguilar signed a $13 million deal for 2 years. So that definitely, because I feel like we mentioned it on the live stream yesterday. Apparently, as of yesterday afternoon, Galladay's market was like 14 to 16. It wasn't like 16 to 18.
There's no way it's that cheap now.
Yeah, I feel like that definitely upped his. I'll say he signs for 17 million per year. And we've seen the Giants linked. I've seen Miami linked.
But the only way the New York Giants could bring him in the building is if they extend Leonard Williams first.
Yeah. I mean,
as of right now, they don't have the money to give Galladay because of the franchise.
They can figure it out though if he agrees to that. I honestly keep thinking Jacksonville. Like I don't know. I just feel like maybe that's biased.
Well, obviously Jacksonville's not done. They're just taking longer than we expected.
We're not hearing things with them, and I know they have Chark, but like Trevor Lawrence's best friend in college was T. Higgins, or like his best. That was his number one guy 2 years ago. He was an absolute beast with him. Galladay is that back shoulder guy. That's Trevor Lawrence. He likes the bigger body receivers better. So like if you're gonna play strength for your quarterback, I'll get him Kenny Galladay. We mentioned the Jaguars don't have anyone to pay right now. This is the perfect time. Rookie quarterback under his contract, sign a guy like Galladay. Juju. I said I'm going to stick to my gut with this. I said San Fran. I said it yesterday. I've not seen him blink there. It might not even happen. I've seen some stuff about him possibly being he would have been able or willing to play for the Jets, Dolphins, or Chargers. But that was all stuff he was doing before free agency. Like he was on Twitch, like on Fortnite, and he was using like as your character. You guys know he had a Jets uniform on, a Dolphins uniform on, and a Chargers uniform on, and like on 3 different days. So I think Juju's just willing to go wherever he's getting paid the most as of right now. But where would you like to see him end up, Peter?
I'm gonna stick to what I said yesterday. I think again, you always want the players to be happy and get paid just because they're players, and you want that. But in terms of organization, just good football, I think Baltimore. I think
Oh yeah,
what they need out of a receiver is what Juju could give to them. I don't think Juju's going to put up as big of numbers as he would in a market where it's just him and he's the sole option, and it's not a run first system, and he's going to be fed the ball kind of like how Pittsburgh was when AB was still there. They were throwing the ball still, and Juju saw the best years of his career. But still, if you could provide Lamar Jackson a safety blanket besides Mark Andrews, right? Another big body guy who's faster, could run all over the field with his good route tree. But yeah, I'll go Baltimore for Juju.
And because you mentioned it earlier in the podcast on this live stream, it was like Corey Davis is the one heavily linked to Baltimore all offseason, especially the last couple of days. It was kind of, I don't want to say it was expected, but a lot of people kind of penciled that in, and obviously didn't.
And I don't see them paying Galladay money, and I don't see them bringing Will Fuller when you have Marquise Brown.
San Fran might fumble the bag with Trent Williams. I'm worried. I honestly thought they were going to sign him before free agency, but then when he hit the market, I was like, okay, is he leaving or is he just trying to feel out the market? I feel like the only other team besides San Fran, because San Fran's willing to go to a certain price. I've seen that they're willing to go like 18, 19, really 17, which is high. The only other team, right, that could even close to afford him or want him would be the Colts, right? Like I seen the Chiefs linked to him, but then they got Thuney.
Why not Cincinnati?
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, the Bengals got really Yeah, I mean, I'd call if I'm the Bengals, but are you willing to pay?
You missed out on Thuney, you missed out on Lindsley, you missed out on the mid-tier guys. And like we said, even if you take a tackle, or let's say it's not the end of the world, you take in Trent Williams, right? He plays left tackle for you in Cincy. Then you draft either Slater or Sewell at 5, and then you either kick Jonah Williams or your fifth overall pick to guard. It helps.
Yeah. And so speaking of Seattle, like we said earlier, so obviously they just lost Shaquille Griffin, but they have serious discussions with bringing back KJ Wright, a long-term player there, someone who's been kind of the anchor next to Bobby Wagner. Had a really good year last year too. So, I mean, even though you lost Shaquille Griffin, that's tough. Bringing back KJ Wright might ease some of that pain.
Ease some of the pain.
That linebacker market's going to – well, it already kind of – the inside linebacker market's, I guess, kind of drying up as we speak. Like Jayon Brown we're waiting for from Tennessee. He's the big guy that's left to fall, but it feels like a lot of these teams, like Levante David got signed before free agency. Matt Milano, it feels like a lot of the top of the inside linebacker market is kind of drying up. KJ Wright is kind of that next guy after Jayon Brown for right now because he's older. But KJ Wright's he'd be. I'm honestly surprised. I didn't think he was going back to Seattle, but if they can, they should. He's a good player.
Just to transition to the Saints, and everybody saying that they can't do anything because cap space and all that stuff. Pending the expected, because while we were streaming, I think 20 minutes ago, Teron Armstead is going to restructure his deal with the Saints as well. So pending that restructured contract, it would get the Saints under the $100 million, cap limit, while still re-signing Jameis, franchise and tagging Marcus Williams, and without trading somebody like Ramczyk or Lattimore, and before even extending them. So just like that, in a matter of a week, Mickey Loomis has done it.
The man, he's gotten it. He had to get it by tomorrow, so he's already a day ahead.
Yep. So
unbelievable. I mean, granted, we don't know for sure, but it looks like without trading any of his star players or cool.
Yeah.
Granted, I guess it's still possible that either because there was rumors. Obviously, you don't know if it's true or not, but I did see rumors in the offseason that maybe they'd obviously look to extend both Lattimore and Ramczyk, and they would most likely extend one of them, but maybe one of the other one who didn't get extended could be traded. Well, that would be one of those surprises.
Get to that.
That would be one of those surprises if it does happen, like tomorrow. That's when the big trade always happens in the NFL. Like the DeAndre Hopkins, it's always at the start of the new year, the Wednesday. It's never on day one.
The Saints can't really afford that right now because now we're thin at corner. because of losing Jenkins, and we still have Gardner Johnson, but his role is not a corner number 2. He's a slot corner, and I think one of the best ones in the league. You can't afford to lose Lattimore, and obviously Ramczyk I think is the best right tackle in the league. What happened, Ryan? Did we lose you? We might have lost Ryan. Let's see what we could do. Try calling him. No answer from Ryan. So now I don't know if I'm still. There we go. It's just me. Ryan will come back. But besides that, if you're a Saints fan, you don't want to lose, obviously, Lattimore or Ramczyk. Granted that they're two best in the league at their position. But now going into the draft, the goal for the Saints is going to have to be to bring in defensive linemen just because of the depth that we lost at the position. It's going to have to be, and here's the call from Ryan. Hello.
Yeah, my bad. Give me 1 minute. I guess my router went out.
Yep, that's fine. You just got to tell me how to invite you back.
Oh, you're still on? All right, hold on.
Yeah.
I just reset it, so give me like 45 seconds or a minute.
Yep, go for it. For number 2.
Oh, so you're on there rolling right now?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, when I lost the connection, it kind of brought us back to the lobby, but that might have been kind of a glitch.
Yeah. I'm just going to go through some of the comments we had. So, thoughts on Trey Hendrickson deal, overpaid, 1-year wonder. The thing with Trey Hendrickson is I don't think he's a 1-year wonder. The issue I have with him is I don't think he's going to be a star pass rusher that he got paid to be. I think he's more of, I don't even want to say rotational piece, but he's a good piece on a good defensive line. Like, he's not the difference maker, but he could be, a 10-sack guy on a really good defensive line like the Saints had. But if you're asking him to be your sole pass rusher and, the leader of the line to do all those things, in that essence, I think it's overpaid. So I wouldn't call him a 1-year wonder, but I do think it's an overpay. I just think Cincinnati was desperate once Lawson signed with the Jets. What about Trufant to the Saints for number 2, Michael Berger? Look, Trufant has played in our division. We've seen what he could do. He was a number 1 corner, and I don't want to say he struggled because he had a good year, he had a bad year, but I was never really scared of Desmond Trufant. But as a number 2, I'd like to bring him in. The problem with that is the Saints are barely going to get by. Again, restructuring with Ron Armstead, we're just going to be able to bring back guys like Jameis and stuff like that. We brought back Hurst, our offensive lineman. And Sean Payton this morning didn't seem too sure on the quarterback room. It looks like he wants to add one more somewhere. So I'm expecting someone in the draft for the Saints to trade future picks to move up to mid-round to get one of the middle round quarterbacks, not the top quarterbacks, but a quarterback in the ranking of 6 to 8. So I don't know if we're actually going to be able to have the funds to bring in Trufant. I wouldn't be against it. It's more of a money thing.
All right, I'm back. Yeah, sorry about that. So it was weird. I honestly thought my laptop died or something, or maybe Peter's. I know before we came on, he was talking about his laptop being 70. I just thought I crashed. So, but anyway, I'm back. My router went out. So sorry about that.
And right on time, the Packers are giving tight end Robert Tonyan the 2nd round restricted free agent tender. So they'll get to match any offer that he signs or get back a 2nd round pick.
Baruch is surprised he hasn't made any moves to surround Wentz with talent so they don't look bad. The Colts are always one of these teams who they're the value team with Chris Ballard. They don't really – the biggest move they made, I think, in the last 3 years has been to trade for Buckner, who they then extended. They haven't really made any marquee free agent signings, have they, in the past 2-3 years? They signed quality guys, but
the biggest move they made was probably besides because they draft well, so they draft core pieces. But the biggest signing they probably had it's not even a signing; it was when they traded for Buckner. That was about it.
And that was a great addition. So I will say that.
Yeah.
So I guess
they still need a pass rusher.
If Ballard views maybe a premium talent, he will go for it. You can say that at least just from that one move. But Chris Ballard's a guy he prefers to build his team through the draft. And you know what? Outside of the quarterback, if Andrew Luck didn't retire, I think we're talking about the Colts in the AFC Championship game at least every single year. That's how good of a team he's built. It's just unfortunate what's
Well,
gone
yeah,
on with the
because
quarterback.
Andrew Luck never had an offensive line until he retired, and then all of a sudden,
Yeah.
Indianapolis has the best offensive, like a top 3 line in the league.
I do agree with his point to an extent. It's like, but I think we said yesterday that T.Y. Hilton, the Colts are calling, they'll match an offer if they deem it fair. So like that could be a possibility of bringing him back, even though he didn't have the greatest year last year. I do feel like he finished strong. So like that's something to be said. He's still.
I do think he'll be back.
Yeah, I think there's a good chance.
I don't think teams can offer crazy money, so Indianapolis will be able to match it.
If he's not back, like I would definitely look to add a receiver, at least in the first round or two, or in free agency. Maybe
realistically, finish.
Maybe even Will Fuller. I mean, I know he's been very, up and down. This past year he was really good, but then he got suspended with the PED use, and then you're concerned about is he going to play 16 or more games. But even if you got Will Fuller for 13 or 14 games a year, he's familiar with the division. I feel like he'd be, especially because the Colts need speed. Like he'd be the deep threat. So like I feel like Will Fuller would make sense there if they don't bring back Hilton.
Yeah, so I think the only thing I was going to add to that is that even if they do end up bringing back Hilton, I still don't think it's going to be a lot of money. And I would still bring in another receiver, whether it's through free agency or the draft. I still think even with Hilton and Pittman, they need one more because I'm not Zach Pascal doesn't do nothing for me or anybody in their receiving room. So I still think you need one more regardless.
He's tough.
You need
not as like a premier guy, but I like him as like number 3.
Well, that's where you need to move the ball. You have your running back now in Jonathan Taylor. We don't know what's going on with Marlon Mack yet. If
he's out the door, he's leaving on like a 1-year deal elsewhere.
Okay, so
but they still have Hines. They have Hines. Yeah, they're good on running backs.
All right, but you need more talent in the receiving room, and tight end has been. They have the new guy now.
They love their tight ends down there. But last year they had Doyle, Trey Burton, and Mo Alley Cox. I think Burton's a free agent.
Cox is the one who emerged because the Doyle in and out through injury, so you can't rely on him. But now that I don't know if Phillip Rivers got the most out of him or what it was, but Mo Alley Cox established himself, I think, as a starting tight end there. But you still need another, wide option or even, I'd go for an outside receiver. But if you want to go for a slot receiver that is not going to be too expensive in free agency, you could do
that. Report is Fournette is being pulled between Seattle and Tampa, but he needs to start, honestly. I mean, I hope he just – so maybe the Patriots are out. Seattle, why wouldn't you just sign back Carson for like a few million more? I mean, granted, my opinion on Fournette hasn't changed much. I do feel like he had a really good playoff run, playoff Lenny. It was all fun. But I'm not interested in paying Leonard Fournette even close to top dollar.
And the thing is, I don't think Tampa's going to pay him top dollar either. And that's why they were looking at the James Whites of the world, because you would start Ronald Jones and James White would be a third down pass catching option.
Yeah, and a much better pass option. I mean, Fournette, we'll give him credit. I'm not going to bash him because hell of a playoff run and completely pulled it out of nowhere. A guy who was benched during the year. The playoffs was extremely impressive. And most people would have asked for it. He was almost released at a point, he said. It's like most people would have handled it differently. So he definitely, earned respect for that. And whatever he gets, I'm sure he will get a decent contract. And he, for the last month of the season, he earned it, especially when it mattered the most. But from Tampa's point of view, he was never the priority. Obviously, never 1, 2, or 3. They got all their priorities back, and I would definitely sign James White for like $3 million less and a better pass catcher. How they're going to use James White too. Brady loves him, I think he's out of Tampa. I don't think there's any chance.
I don't think he's going to stay either, and it has nothing to do with the fact of Tom Brady. Or obviously, he still wants to win, but he did what he wanted. He signed a minimum deal to win a Super Bowl and show what he could do. He did that in the playoffs, right? He won his Super Bowl, and he did all of that to get a big contract. This is a guy who was picked in the top 5, and he wants, obviously when he thought about his career, he was going to make his rookie contract money from being in the top 5, and then he was going to sign, a Christian McCaffrey kind of deal or something like that. And obviously that didn't happen, so I'm surprised he's stuck between Tampa. I don't think he would go back to Tampa. I don't know why he wouldn't consider New England.
Well, that could be another possibility, but if what he's saying is true, like, because that guy said I could see New England too, but it seems like Fournette has some kind of market at least. Like it looks like based on these reports, he might be one of the next running backs possibly signed. Not that this needed confirmation, but I think we brought it up earlier with Fitzpatrick. But Kimberly Jones on NFL Network said after making a couple of phone calls this morning, I was told the Washington football team is no longer interested in Sam Darnold. I mean, you could have, you know, I think we all kind of knew that, but just to confirm it, it's sad because that's
At
where I
least
kind of
three
wanted him.
teams are in contact with the Patriots about a trade for wide receiver N'Keal Harry.
And now it's weird because that's a weird timing. I swear to God, 16 seconds ago, Connor Hughes now tweeted from the Jets beat reporter. Now, granted, I don't think he has this kind of information, but he said even after signing Ryan Fitzpatrick, I'm told Washington has not ruled out a trade for Sam Darnold. It's a bit more unlikely now, obviously, as Washington football team won't be willing to go as high as others in draft compensation, but they still have interest in the Jets quarterback. But from my point of view, I think from most people's point of view, it's most likely not going to be Washington now because they might have some kind of interest, like he's saying. But you know, with Fitzpatrick under contract and Heineke, they're not going to be the team offering the most for Sam Darnold. So at this point, I'd be stunned if he's traded there.
So here's my thing. When do you think, if you had to put a prediction on it, when do you think Sam Darnold gets traded? Is it in the next week? Is it in sometime in April? Is it right before the draft? Is it during the draft?
Yeah, I'm hoping for tomorrow, but I'll say beginning April, like the first week
beginning
in April. Yeah, I feel like they're gonna wait for.
Do you think it's a situation where it's like?
Well, I'm thinking like unless they get an offer, right? That they like maybe the Bears are super desperate right now. The Bears have called up. We'll say hypothetically called up about Russell Wilson. They're not trading him. Deshaun Watson, Texans are still saying no, no, no. So the Bears move on and all right, like let's turn to option C, Sam Darnold. If that happens and they give us a good offer, I'll take the deal tomorrow or as soon as possible. But what I think is more likely to happen is some of these teams are going to wait, you know, to figure out what's going on with other quarterbacks, and then they'll pivot back to Sam Darnold. And from the Jets' point of view, I think they want to wait for the Zach Wilson and Justin Fields Pro Day, which is coming up at the end of the month, March 26th and March 29th. And then once they feel comfortable and they feel like, and I feel like they will. I just feel like that's like a precaution. They want to meet with them, make sure they're good, not just good fits. I feel like their tape speaks for itself, but they like the character. That's a big thing with Joe Douglas. Even his signings this year, if you look at all these guys, they're all like leaders and high quality guys and people who have overcome adversity. So Douglas has definitely a type, but I feel like once he has those questions answered, I think it's only a matter of time before Darnold is gone.
You want to pin this comment right here?
Yeah, sure. I saw a report from Tampa reporter who said Tampa personnel and players are on the phone with Ndamukong Suh trying to bring him back. I actually also seen that this morning. They were trying to get Suh back on like a 1-year deal.
And it's going to be hard because I saw he was going to leave.
I think he's going to come back now. I just feel like, and it's funny because we had a preview video where I was like, yeah, I think they're going to bring back all three of them. And then when I really thought about it, I was like, maybe 2 of the 3. And then they end up getting all 3 back. And they still have, like, it's not that they have money. It's just like they're not in a terrible, terrible situation. Like on a 1-year deal, they don't necessarily need Suh. He's older, but Todd Bowles loves to play his defensive lineman a ton of snaps. And Suh played a crazy amount of snaps for his age last year. But if Suh can come back on a reasonable 1-year deal, like I'm thinking like a 1 year, $6 million with incentives.
Well, that's the thing with the Buccaneers, man. That's what's special about them is you see all the Buccaneers players that I follow on Twitter where they're all saying we're bringing the gang back. It's over for everyone. We're doing it again. We're running it back. The whole gang's back. And if everybody keeps buying in on that defense, like, look, if I have to shed off a few million or if it's just a 1-year deal, you know, we're running it back.
And this is what we were talking about when we were previewing free agency yesterday, or what was happening. We talked about Buffalo, right, and how they got all their guys signed back for below market value. This is the ability you get when you have a culture and a quarterback that you believe in. Like they want to run it back. That's their thing. And right now, it looks like if we were playing football tomorrow, it looks pretty likely. Granted, we'll see with the injuries and stuff, but Tampa definitely they have every major piece. And even if they add James White, I feel like that's another, like, I don't want to say a big addition, but I feel like he's a more, like, Tom Brady loves this guy. Like, I know James White's not the biggest name, but, like, that's a good addition. That only strengthens your options out of the backfield.
I know, at this point, it's hard. I think every year people always predict the team that won the Super Bowl to win it back, even though it rarely happens.
Yeah.
But realistically,
it's not easy, but I'm just saying
if they bring back everybody, which seems to be happening, how do you not,
Yeah, could they make the Super Bowl and lose this time? Of course, but I think as of right now,
Who in the NFC is going to compete with them?
That's what I was thinking too. It's like at the very least they'll make the NFC Championship game, and then you can battle it out between what happens with the Saints. We don't know what Jameis and Hill's going to do, and the Packers. They're kind of always in the picture, but they usually fall short. We'll see. Panthers Super Bowl window could open next season if they somehow get Watson and better defensively. I agree, and I think they are. If there is a team that's going to get Deshaun Watson, I've said since the start. I always, before they were the dark horse team, I said Deshaun Watson. The Panthers makes a ton of sense. We knew that they're looking for a new quarterback, whether it was a rookie or just not someone they could believe in, not Teddy Bridgewater. The Panthers, I feel like, did a really good job last year in the draft. Their entire draft class was defense, and a lot of these guys hit the year before. Even Brian Burns is a stud the year before, absolute stud pass rusher. Derek Brown really came on at the end of the year. I like Gross Matos, who they took in the second round. Jeremy Chin was I think second in voting for Defensive Player of the Year. So the Panthers hit on those last two drafts for defense. Now obviously it's no more Luke Kuechly, and there's still ways to go. But as a nice little nucleus, the Panthers did. Now we have to trade some of that to get Watson. Yeah, I think so. You'd have to give up probably Burns or Chin, unfortunately. So that would take it away. But if the Panthers can get Watson, man, that offense with Joe Brady. With
that's what I said.
Yeah, DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, CMC.
I said the Panthers are a year away with Joe Brady, and luckily for Carolina fans, he didn't leave to go be a head coach somewhere. I don't know if it was other teams not as interested in other candidates, but there were some head coaches that got hired that I don't think should have gotten hired over Joe Brady. Like if I was Philadelphia and you wanted to move on from Doug Peterson, I don't know why Joe Brady wasn't the first guy you called. But look, if you're Carolina, you're thankful. And if you bring Watson in the building, I think it's going to be a situation like a few years ago when you had three teams in the NFC South all making the playoffs. And the Panthers you're a quarterback away from the playoffs. It's really that simple because every year that goes by, your defense is going to get better because they're going to get older, more experience. You're going to bring in new guys as well, free agency draft. Your offense is already there. It's not superstar offensive line, but you're bringing guys in.
How many games last year where it was a one-score game? I feel like most of the games last year was very close games.
It was crazy.
Even the games lost. So
one of the games against the Saints, they should have won realistically.
Yeah,
they snuck by. So
they're
a quarterback away.
Well, do you think they're going to make any moves in free agency? I haven't seen them link to any. They haven't made any signings, right?
I think they made their priority clear. The priorities right now is just bringing a quarterback in the room.
But if the cost to get him is McCaffrey, that's a big price to pay because you lose some appeal to the fans and free agents players. But
I don't think it would cost McCaffrey though. I don't think anybody would want to bring in a running back.
I thought that at first,
especially Houston.
Yeah, go ahead. My bad. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Just Houston. I think they learned their lesson from the David Johnson signing. Now he's restructured, and now they bring in, who they bring in? Mark Ingram, 1-year deal, right? So it wouldn't cost McCaffrey, and plus, I don't think most teams in the team would honestly trade because you would have to give up a high draft pick, or in this case, Deshaun Watson, and probably more. A mid-round pick, whatever Houston would have to do to make it work. And the whole point is to rebuild and help yourself in the cap, so you could bring in star free agents in the coming years. And paying a running back, whatever it is, $16 million a year is not going to help that. So I don't think it would cost McCaffrey.
Yeah, I thought that at first that it might, but then you think about it logically, like Bill O'Brien's not there anymore. So if Bill O'Brien was there, maybe it would take McCaffrey and less draft picks because he loves running backs. But
like you said, a Watson McCaffrey duo would be nice. It would be nice.
Yeah, especially if you're getting Watson, it's like I don't want to give up really any of my offensive pieces for him. Like I'll sacrifice a defensive player, unfortunately, because you're not picking in the top 5 of the draft. But 8th overall is still pretty high. Like the Texans can be flexible with that pick, and then like I said, you're gonna have to give up either I think Brian Burns, Derek Brown, or Jeremy Chin, one of them. I'm not giving up 2 of those, but I'd be willing to do one, and then like maybe 3 ones and like one of those players. I'm good with that.
But look, the thing is too, if somehow Carolina does bring him in, this will be the best team that Watson has ever played on, and this is including when they were winning the division with Hopkins and Fuller and
most importantly, coaching too.
Which is a big thing, so. But that's why I don't think they might be too young of a roster to say Super Bowl favorites, but you can't even say that because look how young San Francisco was when they made it. You know what I mean? It was just a bunch of young guys and then a few old, aging, like star veterans.
Yeah. Once you get even if it's a 1 or 2 year window, and especially when you get someone as good as Deshaun Watson, like things open up. And we're talking about the NFC. The NFC is not even that strong at the moment. Like it's not. There's definitely room for teams to emerge, and the Packers. We understand like they made the NFC Championship game. It feels like I feel like I see them there almost every year, or at least the last couple of years. But that doesn't mean like the Packers have flaws. Like they're not like Aaron Rodgers is fantastic. LaFleur wins a ton of games, but like they're still defensively they're flawed. Like if the Panthers got Deshaun Watson, it would not shock me if the Panthers maybe even went to Lambeau and beat them, assuming this all happens. That's not out of the realm of possibility. So
we talked about it yesterday that the Packers aren't helping their cause and helping Aaron Rodgers to begin with. They're not adding anybody.
Derek Brown is all over him. Yeah, he's really strong and big. Like I know, Peter, you preferred Kinlaw last year, and I always somehow fall into this boat too, because I really value like explosion, and Kinlaw, as an athlete, is better than Derek Brown. But I think Derek Brown was so good last year. I think I kind of changed my stance on that.
At the end of the day, they were both top 15 picks. Derek Brown being a top 10 pick. It's not any knock towards Derek Brown. It's just preference of a prospect coming out. But again, it all has to do with coachings and fits. And
yeah,
I think they're both happy where they are. They're both doing good for their teams.
Like I like Kinlaw better last year too, coming out. But like just watching them, like Panthers happened to be on a lot. There was like 2 primetime games, and they were on at 4 a lot. So
Derek Brown had a slow start to the year.
He had a slow start, but like the way he emerged,
he picked it up
halfway through the year was like crazy. So
yeah, so that's the thing. The Panthers are a quarterback away. Now the biggest concern with the Panthers is even if you can't get Watson or if he's too expensive or whatever the case is, even if you draft a Fields or a Trey Lance, you bring in a star rookie quarterback. He's on his rookie deal. You could still surround him with talent with the cap you have, and it's not the end of the world. The problem is going to be, and you have Joe Brady to develop him, so it's not the end of the world if you draft a quarterback. But how long is Joe Brady going to be there? Because Carolina's still on the rise, and he's going to get head coaching offers. I thought it was going to be this year. Maybe it was a year premature, but don't be surprised if he gets a head coaching, gig somewhere next year. And then, you're in year 2 with your rookie quarterback, new offensive system, and you still have your pieces, but, there's no Joe Brady effect. So that's why going all in on Watson, is appealing because Joe Brady's still there, all these things. The only thing you have to worry about is Tom Brady's still going to play for the next few years. So that's another plus of drafting a rookie. By the time the rookie's in their prime, Tom Brady's probably out of the league.
Exactly. And you don't always want to be worried about what the division is doing. You just try to field the best team, and like once you build a roster yourself, things will just happen around the league where teams will crumble. Like it always happens. Like teams get worse, teams get better. Just focus on yourselves, and if you build it right, like things will work out perfectly for you, or at least well. Let's talk about we've actually covered a decent amount of teams today, but I don't think we mentioned them a few times yesterday, but outside of the Patriots and especially this team, because they haven't signed like stars, but we brought it up when we were talking about Deshaun Watson, the Texans. So outside of Deshaun Watson, right? Like they're signing a bunch of like culture guys and ex-Patriot guys and kind of older veterans to shape, kind of like we said, build up their culture again, reputation. But are you kind of surprised at what they're doing? Because like they didn't really have a lot of cap space to begin with. And it seems like some of these depth guys, like who are good depth, might end up being most of these guys starters, especially defensively.
Yeah. So, just before we go into that, the Giants want to get a long-term deal done with franchise tag Leonard Williams, but there isn't much progress. The tag's $19 million, and Williams is asking for a lot more than 19.
Yeah. The whole situation is holding them up from doing other businesses. So this is the nightmare situation we were talking about yesterday. When Markello was on here too, who was a Giants fan. It's like this tied them up from and if they don't, essentially now it's not close, right? So now the Giants are gonna miss out on wave 1 for agency today and tomorrow. That's what it seems like to me. If the
there's
deal's
no
not
Galladay.
close.
He's out the door.
Yeah, there's no Galladay.
Around for the Giants.
And it's like it's not even necessarily that we needed Galladay. It would have been a great ad for Daniel Jones, but like the Giants should not be a team sitting out wave 1 of free agency. Like I know they don't have a ton of cap to begin with because of Dave Gettleman and the contracts he's given out, but like Dalvin Tomlinson, walked out the door yesterday, and that's someone like I don't know if you necessarily wanted to give money because realistically you're already paying Leonard Williams the franchise tag, or whether he gets extended or not, he's here on a big time deal. what's his name? Dexter Lawrence is also here. So like the Giants have allocated, plenty of money and draft resources into their defensive line. Like Dalvin Tomlinson was like a 3 or 4 year starter here. I think he started. I think it was like 42 games or something. And unfortunately, he was like a sacrifice of the Leonard Williams franchise tag. And it's gonna be more than that. Like that's your own free agent, but like the Giants yesterday, like their only signing was Devontae Booker, and I don't even know why they gave him $3 million per year. Like that was like you have Saquon Barkley, like, or why not just sign back Gallman if who had a pretty good year last year? If you want to invest,
why not bring on any running back for minimum deal, because it would have been better.
Yeah, I would have rather drafted one too. But like, why is that the priority? Like, or why is that even on day one? Afraid like who is
being Gettleman?
Who was rushing to sign Devontae Booker? Who? Like, there's no team. Like he was probably the only interested party in day one of free agency. Yeah, maybe John Gruden, but it's like.
Not breaking news, but Cowboys agreed to terms with cornerback C.J. Goodwin, 2 years, $3.5 million deal. That includes $2 million guaranteed. So again, not a big star, but that cornerback.
They certainly need help in the secondary, at least depth too. He might be a special team guy.
Start going. So now you have to see if Douglas is going to get a deal done with one of these remaining free agents. Now the cornerbacks are going.
We're not getting any. I mean, William Jackson's the only guy left. I'm expecting Kwan Williams, the slot corner, but just outside corners, I'm not expecting really. The only one I guess would be possible. I do like Weatherspoon from the Niners, or even Sherman if that's possible. What do you think? A team. I think they've been waiting it out, calculated, but the Dallas Cowboys.
What do you mean? What about them?
Like I don't think they have a lot of cap, but they certainly need defensive help. Obviously, Dak Prescott got extended. We threw all that behind us. Finally, we have our answer there. But everything else,
we know in the first round they're probably going corner, whether it's Surtain or Farley.
How do you feel about the corner class this year? I think Farley goes 9 at Denver.
We were just talking about that. Yep, yeah.
So they actually signed Darby yesterday. So I think they could still go corner. It's still a need. But I don't think it's not a pressing need anymore as it was. It wouldn't surprise me if Denver trades back and try to maybe get value. But if they did go corner, it's possible. I think this bodes well for Dallas at 10 because they might have their option of all three corners at 10 now. I feel like that's a legit possibility with what happened yesterday. So like if Dallas can get one of the top three corners, whether they take Surtain, Farley, or even Horn,
I still think Denver will go corner, though, regardless of that, because knowing Denver, they've always been the kind of team.
You still have a pick. You're most likely at 10, 95% chance you're going to have 2 out of the 3 corners there.
Yeah. And I still think Denver's going to go corner, though, just because they love having at least 2 stud corners at all time on each side.
Yeah.
Just how
that's a Fangio special on defense. They need corners, but if they didn't, because they took what's his name, Michael Owanju, whatever his name is, like in the second round, I think a year or 2 ago. So like, I don't know if they're ready to give up on him, but it might not even just be about that. I just think signing Ronald Darby gives them flexibility if they wanted to move down and take, even if they traded down 4 spots and like to say they like JC Horn better, right? Than these 2 corners, trade down a few spots and secure JC Horn. Like it's a possibility.
But the thing is when it's that close, right? So like, let's say there's the top 3 cornerbacks and 2 of them are going in the top 10, probably at 9 and 10, right? And you're Dallas at 10. I don't even think you would trade back to take JC Horn. Mm-hmm. I think you would just draft him at 10 at that point. You don't run the risk. If you like him that much and you're like sold on him.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Number one. You just take him at 10.
It's not like the quarterback situation where like because like if you're trading down only 4 spots, I'm talking about like a short term, not trading down 10 spots. Like, and you kind of know what the teams like the Niners, we know, for example, they could go corner, right? But they just signed back for Rhett. And it looks like they might go, if Slater's there, I think they'll take him. But like, I just
don't think NFL teams run that risk. I think if you have a guy,
right? But they do have an idea of what other teams below them are going to do, and they know for a fact that 1 or 2 of them aren't going corner. They could play the odds. Like it's possible, but you could be right. Just take the guy that you want. Don't play around. And this guy makes a good point with like Hill and Ruggs in the division. Farley might be the best fit for that because these guys are, especially the Chiefs offense, they're running 4-3 guys every single play. So
the Bucks, this Adam Schefter just retweeted, the Bucks are actively having conversations with Sue and representatives for Fournette, Ryan Suckup, and Antonio Brown. They aren't finished.
So they literally are bringing the entire band the entire crew back together, which is pretty remarkable. I expected like at least one or two of these guys to walk out the door. I still think Fournette leaves, but the fact that they're even still talking to him and willing to bring him back is pretty. I mean, you have to be happy as a Bucs fan. There's no better scenario. Like, you're probably scared for the weeks leading up to free agency, and this is literally, I don't want to say perfection, but this is as good as it could have went. Like, you haven't let anyone walk out the door. You're bringing back the entire crew that won the Super Bowl. So, and from what we hear, the Browns are still monitoring the cornerback market and the defensive line. So the Browns are kind of just waiting for. That's from Josina Anderson.
Yeah, I just see it now.
Like we said, Andrew Berry, man, he waits. He's a good GM with Cleveland. He's one of the top GMs in the league. He's all about value, man. I feel like that's the common thing when we talk about some of these like good GMs around the league, like Chris Ballard and stuff. Like whenever you're talking about a smart team, right? Like, yes, you can sign. It's not about like not signing the top guys. It's just like don't go all out and spend all your money on day one of free agency is the point. Like wait for some value, identify the guys you want, and then be smart about it. And then that's what translates over into the season. Like whenever people get proclaimed the winner of free agency, that never works out. Like the Jets were winners of free agency for how many years with McCadden, and it's other teams too. It's not just the Jets, but whenever a team gets proclaimed the winner of free agency, it 95% of the time does not work out. I mean, granted, you need to be able to draft with the free agents you sign, but like just winning free agency that's not what you want. If you win value, you can talk about like the high price guys too.
Yeah, I'm just scrolling through Twitter right now. Leonard Williams is really destroying the Giants and everything.
I was saying, man, I would have rescinded his tag yesterday, signed back Dalvin Tomlinson, and then use the rest of the money.
Is it too late?
Yeah, but I mean, but then I want to have a free agent lined up if I'm doing that because now we lost Dalvin Tomlinson.
Kenny Galladay.
Yeah, well, Galladay's still available. If that's a plan, I'd support that because, like I've been saying, whenever you have, even if I'm not even the biggest fan of Daniel Jones, but I feel like he's been. I do like him now better than I did coming out. I didn't even think he was a first round pick, so like I feel like he's at least proven something. Like he's still not a franchise quarterback in my opinion, but let's get him more help. Let's try to put him in the best possible situation, and get him while he's still cheap under the rookie deal. The GM who drafted him is still here, so you're sticking with him for at least another year. And even if Daniel Jones sucks, to have a guy like Galladay or Juju or whoever you sign for the next guy to come in, like that's impactful. That helps the entire team. So like if that's the Giants' plan, then yes, do it. But just to rescind him and not just let Leonard walk out the door like they did with remember they did with Norman, the Panthers, same GM Gettleman, who did that in like 14 or 15 when they franchise tagged him. They did that in July. Like you can't do that in July. All the free agents are gone. There's no plan. You're not gonna. The draft's already over. So he said Xavier Rhodes is an intriguing name for any team at number 1 or 2 corner for the short term for a resurgent year and is looking to cash in Seattle, Jets, or Philly. I feel like for Xavier Rhodes, his best bet would be to go back to the Colts. He really bounced back with them. The last 2 years with Minnesota were pretty bad. I mean, he was obviously, he fell off, but the Colts have a good scheme for him that like cover 2, cover 3, don't really put him on. He can't be a man. He was never really a man corner to begin with, but when you get older, that long speed, he never had great speed to begin with, but it obviously caught up to him. So I feel like the Colts are his best team. If he's looking to cash out, well, he didn't mention Jacksonville, but Jacksonville already paid Griffin. That was one of the teams that I thought maybe Seattle could make sense. They play that same kind of defense, but I just don't trust their pass rush. I feel like putting him out in Seattle is kind of like leaving him out to dry. Like if you're not going to get to the quarterback.
And we just said if he's looking for cash, Philly doesn't have it.
Philly, yeah. But Philly have the need, obviously, for corner.
Yeah.
But yeah, Philly, at least Philly have a decent pass rush. The Jets, so I'm interested in some of these guys who are veterans. I like the approach of signing young guys, but of course that's not realistic for every position. You're going to have to pair older veterans. Maybe on a 1-year deal, but I feel like just go get me Sherman then if that's if we're looking to sign an older veteran to pair with the defense, just go get Sherman if that's possible. But will Rhodes be a bad fallback option? No, it certainly wouldn't be. I'm not signing him to big money, but I feel like
we have some news. So first bit of news: Bills are having their defensive tackle Star Lutulele come back. He opted out last season, so he will be back playing this season, which is big for them on the defensive line.
Speaking of Sherman, wow, your boy, your
Yeah,
Saints.
and the Saints are expressed interest in Richard Sherman. Haven't
So
heard his name
what's-
much, but he's one of the few players without an agent. He represents himself.
I know, and he took a. I remember he negotiated his own deal back when he was coming off an injury to San Fran.
Yeah.
So as a Saints fan, and Sherman's probably not going to be a ton of money. I think he said he wants to play 2 more years.
Yeah, and I would love if those were in New Orleans.
And I did say when people were linking into the Jets, I said I think he wants to play for a playoff team. Even though I mentioned the Raiders, they're not necessarily a playoff team, but they're kind of close. The Saints would make a ton of sense. We've been in the playoffs the last 4 or 5 years. Like obviously, you're not going to give Sherman a huge contract. So you speak on Sherman,
and we're not asking him to be a cornerback number 1, which is beautiful. We're not asking that of him. We're asking him to guard the number 2 guy, and he could 100% do it. He's one of my favorite cornerbacks ever. Like Revis was number 1 and my second favorite corner in NFL history is Sherman. So I'm just a giddy fan right now. But that would be a great fit for us.
And I will say, even as a Revis, even as a Revis guy myself, because I'm a Jet fan and everything, and I do feel like Revis had the greatest cornerback season ever, and like a really high, like peak 3-4 years, where it's like this is amazing, top 5 corner of all time. Sherman had a much better overall longevity career, especially now in his like late 30s. Like the way he bounced back after the Achilles tear from Seattle to San Francisco was very impressive. So, I mean, he can still play. I know he got hurt last year, but he would be an excellent number 2 for any team, especially a team like this.
The thing is, again, we're not only being a number 2, but we're not even asking him to. So, like, obviously, given his age and injury, speed isn't going to be his strong suit. But we don't even ask. We don't need him to run around the field because we still have Marcus Williams now. We were able to keep him and looking to extend him, and we still have Malcolm Jenkins there. So he has backside help, and he's a smart player. You match him with. Look, even though Marcus Williams and Lattimore, you could say they're young, but realistically, they're in their prime right now. So It's not like they're rookies. They're in their prime. They're in their mid-20s. And Malcolm Jenkins is one of the smartest vets in the league. You match him up with another smart vet in Richard Sherman, that secondary. I love that move. I hope that happens. It wouldn't be for a lot of money because
it seems like there are 3 or 4 other teams. They didn't mention them. Obviously, the Saints are mentioned. So.
I know, but unless it's like you said, a playoff caliber team, I think he'd choose New Orleans. No offense, over the Jets, just based even though he loves Saleh.
That's what I was trying to tell people with like Sherman. Like, yes, he loves Robert Saleh. I understand that, and if Sherman didn't have a big market, maybe like if he believed in the Jets, in 2 years. But like this goes back to like especially the players who've already been paid, right? Already had a big career, like someone like Sherman, right? If a playoff team is calling you and you still feel like, because Sherman said he feels like he has 1 or 2 strong years left, then you're going to go to a team like the Saints. And if it's not the Saints, it'll be some other playoff team. Like maybe even. I mean, I don't think he's going to go here, but the Colts, if they do get rid of Rhodes, that makes sense to me at least, like a playoff team as of 2021. So we'll see. And now the cornerback market, I think, is going to start to fall. We're hearing now that probably William Jackson, Patrick Peterson, obviously Sherman, Troy Hill, Kevin King, and Kwan Williams are kind of the next guys up. That's from Tom Pelessiero, the guy from NFL Network. So,
and I don't know if he's going to play a thing or not. Yeah, but so back in Seattle when Sherman was still there, his DB's coach was Chris Richard, who is now the DB coach for New Orleans. So I don't know if that's going to play a role in. I'm assuming seeing a familiar face at the table during negotiation, a Zoom call now would be good for him. So hopefully that plays.
He's very highly regarded, Richard. I remember there was talks about him being a possible defense coordinator like a year or 2 ago. He was actually up for head coaching jobs. I think like that was 2 years ago though, and then he sat out the end of last year and he's back. So I forgot he went to the Saints. That would make sense.
So what now, Fournette?
What position is he for you? What coaching title? Is he the DB's coach, or what is he for the Saints?
Yeah, still DB coach. So again, just to shift gears, we talked about it before, but Tampa has given their offer out for Leonard Fournette, so he's just sitting on it. But apparently, Seattle made a strong bid as well. So, like it was said earlier in the comments, but it's between those 2 teams 100% now.
Like,
so I'm assuming New England's out of it.
If you were them, right? Why would you like? Well, let's see the Fournette contract. But like, wouldn't you just sign back Chris Carson?
Well, yeah, because he already knows the system and he's never played bad for you. His thing was always just injury. So unless you're worried about injury concern,
But like Chris Carson's also better too. Like, I don't care where they drafted. Chris Carson's a better
no, I know,
player.
but that's the only thing I
Yeah,
could think of. Maybe it comes down to money and it comes down to injury.
yeah. Kerrigan's also a nice name for teams needing pass rush. He had 5.5 sacks last year. Yeah, Kerrigan's been really good his whole career. Obviously, he's not going to be a full-time player anymore. But this Kerrigan reminds me of like when Justin Houston was leaving Kansas City. I think he's a little bit older though,
Yep,
Kerrigan. As one of those
it's the same
guys, like
kind of
he's
thing
not going
though.
to be in tier one of free agency anymore. But if Kerrigan can sign with a contender or at least a defense, he will provide pass rush, especially situationally. Like if you can get him in that kind of role, like third downs, or like you have a specific plan for him.
So you know who would be
Kerrigan,
a good fit for him? Not for
no,
nothing. Kansas
Seattle,
City.
Kansas
Kansas City.
City, Seattle need help too after getting rid of Dunlap
I
too.
know, but
But yeah,
Seattle
but with
needs full time
Seattle, you
help.
feel like he might have to play full time, unfortunately, with
Yeah.
Seattle. But yeah, Kansas City and Kerrigan at this point, I don't think I feel like he's already been paid, right? Too. So like he still wants to get paid, but at this point, he might sacrifice $1 million or two less to go play with a playoff team because Washington's whole career haven't been that. Most of his career it's been not good Washington football team. So yeah, Kerrigan's interesting. I wonder where Justin Houston signs too. Probably back with the Colts, but like they're still good. Like what I was talking before about the tier one pass rushers gone, and I meant people who were like in their prime, but they're certainly good. Like situational pass rushers still there. A guy I actually want is Kerry Hyder. Like he's not Ryan Kerrigan. He's certainly not Justin Houston career wise, but last year he had 8 sacks with San Francisco. He's probably going to be a bargain for some team. Maybe he signs back with San Fran, hoping that Salah brings him to New York. But Kerrigan's interesting.
So let's see here. What else is going on?
Well, it seems like we're starting to pick up some things right now. So
Yeah, little by little, right?
every couple minutes, yeah. Well, this is what happens. We're just waiting for that. Like, well, it looks like the corner market's kind of starting up now, but like we're waiting for that. When do you think the wide receiver market is really going to like kick in? Like, is it going to be when Galladay signs and then everybody else follows, like to see what the top guy gets, and then we'll wait and kind of adjust?
Because I still think there's a chance that Samuel or Fuller sign before Galladay.
I feel like Curtis Samuel has a good market, probably 4 or 5 teams. Will Fuller, I don't feel like he has a big market. I could be wrong, but like because with the suspension, the injuries, like he might not have a big market. Will Fuller, he might be forced to take a 1-year deal somewhere. Like you mentioned the Packers before. I think people have linked them because I think the Packers wanted him at the trade deadline. And speaking of that, what's funny is obviously the Raiders had Gus Bradley, right? They just hired him to be defense coordinator. The Raiders actually tried trading for Yannick last offseason. Apparently, they offered a first-round pick, like one of their first 4 Yannick. And then obviously Yannick, then Jacksonville declined it at the time and then traded him to Minnesota for like a second or third and before the season started. But some of those things, and as long as you keep the same management, some of those things kind of like overlay and they happen again if it's possible. Like the Raiders got Yannick yesterday for $13 million on a 2-year deal, $13 million per year. So like some of those things happen where it's like, all right, we don't get him now, but we'll circle back to it.
Green Bay's going to end up with either Samuel or Fuller. It's just a matter of whichever one they end up with, where's the other one going to land?
Well, I don't think the Packers are going to get Curtis Samuel because I feel like his market, I don't want to say gigantic, but I feel like Curtis Samuel's going to hit like 12 or 13 per year.
All right, so then it's probably, like you said, it's going to be a recurring thing with Will Fuller and then Samuel. Because like hopefully is a Jet, but that might be wishful thinking. I truly don't think Joe Douglas is the type to throw that much money at the same position like that. You know what I mean?
I mean, I'd be willing to cut Crowder to do it. I feel like most Jet fans would be because we would have a role, like a specific role for him. It'd be like a Deebo Samuel role where like he did a little bit.
I know, you saved the $10.5 million, but
at the same time, it's like maybe you can get Rondell Moore in round 2 or some of these guys in the draft for like not even like 1/4 of the price. So that's something to consider. I feel like
I would be surprised if Douglas does it. He just I talk about him in terms of being aggressive. I think he's more of the, like you said, sit back, calculated.
For the Jets, one big move left for the Jets. I don't know what it's going to be.
Yeah.
I think there's one more domino to fall for them, and then everything else will be like depth and good signings, like value. But I feel like there's one more Like, Corey Davis, Carl Lawson, and there'll be one more I think we're waiting on. Ngakwe was a good signing. He definitely did not fit in Baltimore. Yeah, he's not a 3-4. And Baltimore are kind of weird because like they did this with Zardarius Smith, right? And they did it with Judon. They don't like to play their outside linebackers. Like they play him like 50% of the snaps. Like Yannick, even when he was traded there, I think played only 45% or 50% of the snaps. And yeah, that's where his best year came from. Where Gus Bradley was there, the wide 9. That's why I wanted him for Salah. He was my number 2 option. Peter can confirm this for me. I was Carl Lawson 1, Yannick 2. But I feel like they got him at a good price. 13 for Yannick when I feel like he's an 8 to 12 sack kind of guy. And the Raiders needed that so badly. So I love that for them. I will say if people are concerned about him being on like 3 teams in 1 year, like is there I don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but like are there character concerns? I don't know. But just
already know Mayock's and Gruden's not concerned about that.
Just watching him as a player, impactful player, and especially in this type of defense. So I feel like the Raiders got a good one there.
But like we talked about yesterday, but the Raiders a little bit, they're still a ways away on defense.
So let's talk about
more than a pass rusher. They need a linebacker. They need more secondary help.
Yesterday we mentioned the Raiders when I said that we should fire John Gruden and Mike Mayock, but we haven't actually talked about their this offseason like right now. So they got Yannick, right? That was the big one. I think that's all they've done so far, but that's what most teams have done so far. I feel like outside of the Patriots,
the draft is going to be a big deal for them because, like we said yesterday, like they just haven't drafted well. Even like the year before Mayock got there, and since Mayock hasn't really done a good job. And I think when they took Clennon, whatever you say his name, Farrell at 4, they missed on Farrell. He's not it.
He's not it. They could have had Devin White, Josh Allen. I would have even taken Ed Oliver. Like. Even though
Devin White was the star that was still remaining, and
I will say though,
came into fruition. He was the can't miss one, and like even with Josh Allen, like he was projected to be a top 2 pass rusher coming out, but there were like a little bit concerned.
He had the high upside, we
knew he was going top 10, but there was question marks. But there was 0 question marks in Devin White. Everybody knew what you were getting. You were getting an All-Pro in Devin White that was known from before the draft. And I think Mayock just tried being like, oh, look at me. I'm Mike Mayock. I'm a GM now. I'm not an NFL analyst. And look at me making my, surprise picks. I know more than everybody else. And, come watch, blah, 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 kind of thing.
They also, because I remember when they took him, it was very scrutinized, of course, and it was very questioned. And one of the reasons was like what kind of guy. It was like a lot of that 4th overall selection went into character, which I understand to a point. Like you want good characters on the team, but like talent. But
that doesn't mean that Devin White's a bad guy. Like you can't pick and choose who you like based off of their character. They might have just
fallen in love with like Farrell as a leader, as like a person. So, but yeah, that's not. I mean, unless the player has like blatant red flags, like Devin White.
I know, but Ryan, at the same time, remember they had another pick, the Raiders, and Farrell was projected to go in the 20s. So even with your second pick, if you wanted to jump up to like the early teens, if you loved Farrell that much, you could have done it.
Even if you took him at 10 or 11, if you wanted to move down, I would have accepted that. Like maybe you took him a little bit too high, but taking him at 4th overall when, like you said, he was
I'm telling you, that was just Mayock and Gruden saying, look at us. We know more than everybody else.
And that's
because they said a few hours before the draft, we're going to surprise everybody.
They fired everybody right before the draft. It was that one draft class with Farrell. It was only Mayock and Gruden in the war room. And if you guys know, when they show the war room, it's supposed to have like all the scouts that you have, player personnel, a bunch of guys. Like
everybody worked for a year just to get fired on the most important day.
Guys who have worked for the entire year, going to these pro days and college games throughout the season, and then they're fired, and just Gruden and Mayock in a room for 3 days. It was hysterical.
Feelings on Patriots. So we talked about this at the very beginning.
My Niners fan, he's here. Jeffrey, when you're watching this, are you getting rid of Jimmy Garoppolo? I know I haven't talked to you in a while, and he was a big Jimmy guy last year. Have your thoughts changed on that? But we'll answer. I actually like the Patriots free agency. I just don't love it. Like they definitely improved. I feel like some of these contracts are going to bite them in the ass in like 2-3 years. But for where they were last year, from getting the guys back off of from opting out, Dante Hightower, Chung, and then adding Trent Brown back to this the offensive line, I like. We're surrounding Cam Newton whatever quarterback, whether it's Cam, who's ever starting here, is getting better options. They were definitely the worst in the league last year when it comes to especially when Edelman got hurt, which was like he missed basically the entire year. Patriots definitely got better, added receiver depth. I like Aguilar. He was overpaid, but he had a good year last year. I'm not expecting that because he still deals with drops. But you know what? You added a deep threat. I'm not going to be mad about it. And you got the number 1-2 tight end in free agency. Like, yes, you might have overpaid, but McDaniels, Patriots know how to use 12 personnel. There'll be 2 tight ends in a lot. Jonnu Smith can play like the H-back role, even a fullback role. Like, you can give him reverses too. So what's good about Jonnu and Hunter Henry is they're completely different players, even though they play the same position. They both have very different skill sets. So I like what the Patriots did. I just don't love it. I'll just put it like that.
And two, like I said it before when we started the show, just to reiterate it, I think this was just, Bill Belichick, 69 years old, going on 70. You lose Tom Brady. He goes on to win a Super Bowl. You miss the playoffs. You had a really disappointing year. You're towards the end of your coaching career. I think he is considering retirement relatively soon. So in the last hurrah, it's like, okay, let's just throw everything we got. There's no need to play it safe. No need to think of the future. Let's just go all in. It was a good run.
Yeah. Now, you know what it is?
Garoppolo, he only has another year left there.
As a Niners fan, the Niners, like, for like anyone watching, even like I'm 22. I think Jeffrey's 21. So growing up, the Niners, even though they have the rich history, like outside of the Kaepernick years where they made the championship game, like the Niners, especially the last like 4 to 5 years before with the whole Chip Kelly nonsense, the Niners were not a good organization for a while. And then obviously they turned around when Shanahan came here. And Garoppolo had a very good year last year, but I know if everyone went back in time, because like Tom Brady was heavily linked there for a bit, and the Niners didn't consider it because they had Garoppolo and they believed in him. Obviously, if we can go back in time, not that the Niners would have won the Super Bowl this year, but if they could make the decision over, they would obviously do it. And now we're stuck here in 2021 with questions, answers, but we'll see. So, I mean, we talked about the Niners, but what would you do? Because I know Jeffrey's probably watching. If Trent Williams doesn't resign, right? Because the Niners have, I believe, $25 million before free agency. They brought back Juszczyk, the fullback, and Verrett. So like they have signed back 2 of their top 3 free agents, top 4 free agents. If Trent Williams, for whatever reason, goes to a team like the Colts who offers him much more per year, what would you then turn around and spend the money on? Like they certainly need secondary help. A lot of their secondary free agents, but is there any like one player or a certain position that you would target for them?
We have another Cam comment. Glad they didn't get rid of Cam. He showed flashes of his old self, but couldn't string it together.
Oh yeah, well, Dalton. Dalton, I feel like the Bears are apparently interested in him. I've seen because the Bears have been interested in every single quarterback.
That's not Mitch Trubisky.
That's not Mitch Trubisky. So I don't know how much money he's getting. You feel like I would have to pay Dalton at least. I don't know. I feel like
but that's the problem the 49ers are in. That
and
you have Jimmy G, and there's just no better alternative. You're not going to find a better starter right now than Jimmy G for what's available.
Sam Darnold's available for you, Jeffrey. But, I mean, as a Jet fan, I would not suggest that for you. I don't think you want to deal with that. But he has talent. He went to USC, so he's a California kid. Glad they didn't get rid of Cam. Showed flashes. Yeah, Peter's not a big Cam guy. I will say.
Here's the thing.
Let
me defend Cam. I'll actually defend him here.
Even as a Cam fan, last year I can honestly say that he's dropped off. It's not last year you've seen with all the injuries he's done to him. I don't think he was as bad as it showed last year. Like he started off the year hot, and then Edelman got hurt. He got COVID, so it could have been something like that. I'm not going to make excuses for him the whole year, but Pats had the worst. Peter, you can agree on this. Pats had the worst receiving core in the league.
So I'm actually going to defend Cam here. So I'm not the biggest Cam guy, and like Ryan said, like I don't think we're ever going to see. I know we're never going to see 2015 Cam again. It's just not going to happen. But you started off the season strong. The Patriots still looked like they were going to be a playoff team, right? And then slowly, like little by little, you had the Edelman injury. You had the injuries even on defense. Then you had Cam getting COVID, and when he came back, he was nowhere near 100%. He was throwing like 3 interceptions a game, no touchdowns. But then to finish off the year when, everybody got right again, he finished the season, I think 5-4, right? And he played well. He had 12 combined touchdowns, like passing and rushing. So especially now with all the talent they're putting around him, he said, they'll be back in the playoffs. Considering everything went wrong for them and they still went 7-9, you have to assume they'll win 9 games about this year. So that could be playoffs, but the AFC is so good and competitive. And now with the extra seed, it's going to depend on what games you win, your division record, because the AFC East, no offense to Ryan, but besides the Jets, it was really competitive. Hopefully the Jets are competitive again this year. So it's going to be hard in the AFC to make the playoffs, but with Bill Belichick, and now you're getting all these, again, average to good guys. It's not a crazy free agency, but you're bringing in good guys.
And they still have to draft, of course. I will say this. The Dolphins were much improved last year. I'm not so sure the Patriots aren't better than the Dolphins right now.
Well, the thing is, you're bringing in all these names. We have to see how it all comes into fruition.
Patrick is gone now. Like we can't rely on him coming off the bench and providing a miracle, or something like that.
Can't also have a full training.
Yeah, Trent, I feel like is going to go back to San Fran. I'm just saying if he doesn't, then you should definitely turn back to secondary help. But I mean, you did get Rhett back on a steal contract. Like it's very incentive heavy.
Yeah, that was really cheap. I thought it was really a little more than that.
You were top 10 last year, but his market might not have been strong. I understand because of his injury history, but absolute steal. And if Trent Williams didn't sign back, you would then take a tackle at 12. And like you're saying, I've linked. I still think you guys might be in on one of these wide receivers. So like I said Juju before. It might not be Juju. Maybe it's a different playmaker on offense. But I just feel like because Shanahan loves to do that. Like we mentioned yesterday with like Jared McKinnon. The Niners always make some of these moves where it just kind of comes out of nowhere. Like a player that's not linked to them. It's kind of it makes sense when you think about it. But like it's not necessarily a need for them is the point. And the Niners tend to do kind of things like that. But I agree. It should go to your secondary. I even consider signing an edge, like we mentioned, like Justin Houston or Kerrigan, like to pair with Nick Bosa, because D Ford, I know he restructured his deal, but he's been hurt like every single year there. I think he got hurt last year too. So it's like he was nowhere near the money. And I think they traded for him too, right? It was like a second-round pick a couple of years ago. Just did not work out, even though he's still on the team. It's just not – I can't rely on him every week to get to the quarterback.
What team do you think Curtis Samuel signs with? Look,
I think Washington.
At this point, you think?
Yeah, I like I said, Ron Rivera, his old coach, his old offense coordinator. I think Turner's down there. I feel like he's definitely the type of guy they need. Like they had Terry McLaurin, right? Let's get a viable second option, a guy you can use in a bunch of different roles. So I think Washington.
Washington's a good thing. If the Jets didn't sign Corey Davis yesterday, I would have them as right now the favorite to bring in Samuel, just being a Brooklyn kid and coming, to New York, New Jersey, whatever. Just the hometown effect, and plus he would still get the money. But now that Corey Davis is there, I don't think Joe Douglas is going to pay 2 wide receivers that kind of contract. So Washington's a good fit.
I've seen Jacksonville because he went to Urban Meyer was there when he was the coach, so I've seen that linked. But then again, like there was a fake report yesterday. I don't know if you've seen it. A fake Schefter account, and he tricked whoever it was, tricked like Diana Rossini when she retweeted it. It was like Curtis Samuel signed with Jackson for 4 years, and then obviously she unretweeted it. But I was like, oh man, damn! Like, and it was the same amount of money as Corey Davis. So I was like, I was upset about it at first. It's like, oh, I would rather just sign Curtis, but they have Chenault, right? And I know they're different players. Chenault's more of a big body guy, but like they kind of offer the same skill set, like the yak ability. The guy they just took in round 2. I understand it's a brand new GM and coach in there, but like Chenault also impressed toward the end of the year last year as a receiver. I know he ended the year, I think, with 2 touchdowns too. So I'm not sure. Like
I think he's having a bigger role this year.
Yeah, he's gonna have a bigger role. You'd expect. So like I don't understand. Like I wouldn't understand pairing the 2 of them. Would you? On the same? It feels like they kind of offer the same kind of thing.
No, like we said, the best fit for I don't want to say for the player, but at least for the team, they're probably. Galladay's probably the kind of receiver that they would go for, Jacksonville.
Yeah, Cam also done a full training camp. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair to say too. Last year was a weird offseason. So and if you watched, like I know Peter's watched parts of it, but during the podcast he had with Ocho Cinco and Brandon Marshall, so when he got COVID, right, it wasn't just him, like his body reacting to it. It was because he actually didn't get the symptoms, or so like it wasn't that. The Patriots, like he said, if you watch it, they have different kind of like. Their offense gets more and more complicated throughout the year. And he unfortunately got COVID very, very early on in the year. So he said that he went from like algebra to calculus when he came back. So like they just kind of went on without him. That's what they do. So that could have obviously impacted it. He said we have another signing. The Jaguars signed their former first-round pick from 2010, Tyson Alulu, on a 2-year deal. good son. He actually is a good player. So he was kind of a bust in Jacksonville, but when he went to Pittsburgh the last few years, I know he's been really, really good. Surprisingly, like that's a player who definitely figured it out later on in his career. Probably had to get out of Jacksonville first, but yeah, with the Steelers, he's been really good. You know what? That's good. The Jaguars having needs, and you know they were very inactive day one of free agency, but now it looks like they're starting to pick it up.
Well, this is the thing that they need to do, though. They need to put in the holes for all levels of the defense. How do you feel about Sherman being linked to the Saints? I'm happy about it. I just hope it happens. I don't want this to be like a tease and you throw it out there and then he signs with somewhere else because we really need the second cornerback. And I don't know. We talked about he has links to our current defensive back coach, and yeah, not just that, but there were tweets that are now resurfacing from like 2014. So I think it's when Seattle won the Super Bowl, and Sean Payton tweeted him congratulating on a great postseason. You're a great player, and then Sherman retweeted him back and said, "You're a heck of a coach. Thank you." Blah blah blah. So not that it means anything, but there's mutual respect, and especially with Sherman like representing himself, respect is going to play a major role. That's why he left Seattle in the first place, right? And I don't know. So it's a good fit. Obviously, at corner, you want to get younger, not older, but for what we're asking Sherman to do for our defense, and I know people think with Breeze leaving the window's closed, and we lost a lot of depth, but we still have our star, nucleus. So we're still a playoff team. It's just about getting over the hump in the playoffs, and Sherman, his experience, just like Malcolm Jenkins, can help.
Yeah, and most importantly, even the depth that you lost, if the Saints can have a good draft, you can replace some of that like straight away. So,
because the Saints in the draft, they're going defensive line, they're going corner, maybe a linebacker in the middle rounds.
Yeah, I wouldn't say the Saints are done yet, but obviously it all lies on the shoulders of. I'm going to say Jameis Winston. I'm not even going to say Taysom Hill. So
it's going to be a competition. It's going into camp. Sean Payton confirmed that it's a competition, but I think it will be Jameis too. We talked about it yesterday. I just think he's going to want to use Taysom Hill still as a tight end and put him all these different positions and reverses and do all these crazy things with him. So if you're going to do that, he can't be your starting quarterback.
Another update is 3 teams are currently in on Chargers linebacker Denzel Perryman right now.
They mentioned the teams or no?
No. People are assuming that people say linebacker. There's Packers fans in here saying linebackers are a myth in Green Bay. I've seen Dolphins. There's some Jets fans in here. Chargers maybe re-signing him. I don't know.
Yeah, I just see the tweet now. That's interesting. I wonder what teams are interested. There hasn't been a lot going on.
The linebacker market, right? Outside of re-signings. I mean, who do you have left? Van Noy, right?
Yeah. So how do you feel about your signing yesterday?
Oh, yeah, we haven't mentioned him. Jared Davis.
Yeah, how do you feel about it?
So when he was the first signing, people were like overreacting, and then I seen the contract. It was like 1 year, $7 million, but it actually wasn't like that's $7 million with incentives. So like it was kind of misleading at first. When I first seen the signing, my reaction was why, but I guess when you break it down, I don't think he's going to be. I feel like the Jets have at least a plan with him. It reminded me last year a lot of when we signed George Fant and people like questioning it and like just saying like, who is this or why didn't you sign this player? But listen, this might be one of those guys that Salah identified, our new head coach, and if he feels like, okay, Matt Patricia didn't use him well or use him right, that's certainly a possibility. Matt Patricia was one of the worst coaches in the league. There's a former first-round pick out of Florida. So the Jets seem to love Florida Gators. Like they're just like we're talking about Urban Meyer in Ohio State, Joe Douglas and Florida Gators. So, but this is one of the guys that Salah really wanted or identified as a possible like long-term option because he's 26 and we get him here in a 1-year deal and his talent, we're able to use him in a role where he can flourish. It's possible. Like Salah, that's where Salah does his best work. Everyone said that when we hired him. It's like Salah's best work comes from linebackers. Like he even gets production out of mid-round guys from San Francisco and back in his days in Jacksonville and Seattle, of course. But so I'm 50-50 on it, but it's not a long-term deal. So like there's no reason to be upset about it.
1 year, you had the cap space for it.
It's an upside deal. It works out. Fantastic. If it doesn't, he's gone next year. So you can answer one. Then we have a question after that. Jameis as your quarterback.
Yeah. So again, it's much like.
But answer the question.
Yeah. So we talked about it earlier on with some of the other teams. Like we talked about with San Francisco, like you have Jimmy Garoppolo, and as of right now, there's no really better alternative to turn to. So you just ride out with him while he's still, under contract on your team. It's kind of like that where I'd rather Jameis Winston over most of these free agent quarterbacks. So, or even available via trade. So like Sam Darnold, I want Jameis over him. Obviously Ryan Fitzpatrick, all these guys, you want Jameis, and just to hit that untapped potential. My thing is wishful thinking as a Saints fan. As long as Russell Wilson named us as one of his preferred trade destinations, is somehow Mickey Loomis. Because this morning, Sean Payton went on a Good Morning show and talked about. They said, "Are you done at quarterback?" And he said, "I like where we're at. I think we're done at quarterback." He said, "I think." He wasn't 100%, so maybe he's looking at adding in one more, probably as a backup. But my wishful thinking is he's referring to Russell Wilson and seeing if somehow, some way a trade could get done. Again, wishful thinking, but if you send multiple first-round picks, right, and then somebody like Marshawn Lattimore, which is a high price, but again, to bring Russell Wilson in the building, we wouldn't have to pay Lattimore. You bring in somebody like Richard Sherman, right? You draft a corner, and then you just have to keep attacking the cornerback position, whether it's through the draft free agency the years to come. It's a sacrifice, but you get Russell Wilson instead of Jameis Winston or Taysom Hill, and you're automatically a Super Bowl contender. So happy with Jameis, but there are better options and there are worse options, but I'm indifferent on it. CJ Henderson, Shaquille Griffin will be fun to watch in the years of rebuilding. Jags team, but sad to see the self-destruct in 2017. That team looks like a future powerhouse. Well, yeah, because we rarely see, that kind of defense be built. It was kind of like what the Rams had, right, for that short period of time, and then they saved it by trading for Ramsey. That downfall of that 2017 team was relying too much on Blake Bortles to take you to the promised land. That shouldn't have lasted as long as it did.
What did you just talk? You said Jameis, and what did you go to the next comment?
We talked about Jameis, the Saints, and wishful thinking Russell Wilson trade. If somehow the Saints could pull off a trade getting Russell Wilson, sending multiple firsts, and maybe like Marshawn Lattimore, I would do something like that. And talked about the 2017 destruction of the Jags team.
Yeah, I like this pairing though for them for the future. Like this is what do you say, CJ? You're talking about Mosley. Yeah. Fago say somewhere saying CJ may not be with us. I think he's talking about TJ Mosley, right? Like it wouldn't be Henderson.
Yeah, I think he would have just said Henderson. Well, actually, no. Maybe he was referring to Henderson right here because I don't know why. I haven't seen that anywhere that CJ Henderson wouldn't be with you guys.
No, his name is Duval. So no, he's got to be a Jags fan. So Duval, yeah. No, he's gonna be with you. I mean, I know it's a new regime, but you just drafted him in the first round last year. He had some promising moments. Obviously, he wasn't all perfect, but you're not gonna get rid of him.
You don't give up after 1 year.
Yeah,
especially when it wasn't all bad.
He was the 9th overall pick.
Yeah,
and I feel like this even takes pressure off of him now because now he doesn't have to be the number one guy. You give it to Griffin and his role, and they also signed back Sidney Jones this morning before they got Griffin. So, and Sidney Jones was a player who got he wasn't fantastic, but in the limited role last year, coming from Philly, he was decent. So
yeah, I wouldn't believe any report you see that he won't be there. He will be there for the next few years.
Chance to make a run this year. So if I was the Packers, I would have signed back Corey Linsley instead of Aaron Jones. But if the Packers can address center or guard in round 1, like Creed Humphrey or Landon Dickerson in round 2.
The thing is, with the Packers, you already know as long as Aaron Rodgers is playing, you're locked in as a top 5, if not a top 3 seed in the NFC, just because of how the NFC is. Yeah, so they're going to be there. Again, it's just like the past 2 years. It's about getting over the hump and the front office not giving Aaron anything to work with or fixing the problems that you've had on defense. And it's been the same problem for the past few years, and it's still not addressed. So getting over the hump is a different thing, but you'll at least be in the position to be there.
Yeah, here's the difference. The Packers also fired Mike Pennant, so I feel like that's an upgrade for their defense. Kevin King is going to be not coming back through free agency, so let's hopefully the Packers can maybe sign a veteran corner here, one of these veteran guys in free agency. Even Xavier Rhodes, even though I don't want him in man coverage, but
he would be the number 2 though, so it's different.
Yeah, so if you can get a veteran, even Sherman to the Packers. I know we mentioned the Saints. That would be a good fit, someone that the Packers need, a smart player there, and then Kevin King's not getting burnt, right? The secondary is so much better. The safeties are good. Savage and Amos, of course,
We
Alexander.
brought back Aaron Jones. Aaron at least.
Yeah,
at least
Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Jones is phenomenal. I would have prioritized Lindsey instead, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. Like the partnership between Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon's going to be top 5 in the league. It just we need MVS to play like he did at the end of the year, and MVS was really good in that Tampa game, even the game they lost. Like it wasn't his fault at all. Like he played well. We just need that consistently. I would like to add another kind of weapon. Like Tunyon, he emerged last year. We know Devontae Adams. We have Aaron Jones. I want one more guy who's going to week in and week out. I know the Packers can rely on and throw to. Like I feel like Emmanuel Sanders would be perfect there. The guy you just released, Peter. Like a guy who's a perfect number 2. He came into San Fran 2 years ago, and he actually was the number 1 down there. He was a big reason for their Super Bowl push and almost win. Like that's a great guy. You get him for cheap too. That's what I would do. So the Packers, they're not done yet, but a lot's going to depend on their draft and the rest of these bargain free agents. But I do like firing Pennant. I never really liked him, even as a Jet fan. I didn't really like his defense to Cleveland. As a head coach, he failed. But the Packers are always going to be in it, like Peter said, top 3 seat almost every year with Aaron Rodgers. And for right now, depending on the moves they make, I think they'll be in it. And hopefully they get over the hump for your sake, Danny. But at least you have
my camera on my laptop, but I'm still here.
Okay. Yeah, we're gonna end this in about 2:30, 2:45 because Peter has a midterm. So, he's talking about since they still under contract with us, the CJ Henderson. Yeah, it's only 2nd year, so the Jaguars are suddenly now getting involved in the market, though. Like we said yesterday, they were kind of they signed Carlos Hyde, but for the most part, they were kind of just waiting and waiting. So. It seems with all that money, like the Jets too, like the Jaguars are going to make some moves. Tyson Lulu, they're slowly coming in now, and we haven't. So Curtis Samuel he's a hot topic. So I've said Washington. Peter, who'd you say for Curtis?
I like the Washington pick, and I was just being a homer and saying the Jets, just the hometown effect. But I don't think Douglas will throw that much money.
We even mentioned Jacksonville as a fit because. Urban Meyer connection, Ohio State. It's just when you're talking about him and Chenault, they're kind of the same, not the same skill set, not the same body frame. Chenault's going to break more tackles, but those are both guys you want in space who are going to make defenders miss. So
I wouldn't count out the Packers either.
Yeah, speaking of the Packers, what we talked about, maybe Emmanuel Sanders. If the Packers go big game hunting, Curtis Samuel will be a breath.
That was the report yesterday from that the CJ Golson page.
It was Curtis
that we saw. It wasn't specifically Curtis, but it was the fact that one of the top 5 or top 4 wide receivers they were going to try to bring in.
If even Will Fuller, man, I know he's never healthy or 16 games, but Will Fuller, when he's not even as number 1, he played well last year. But if you're putting him in offense where the whole focus is on Devontae Adams and even stopping the Packers run game, Will Fuller is going to beat one-on-one coverage. I know
that's why I think it's going to be either Samuel or Fuller.
Yeah. I mean, MVS is not a bad deep threat, though. I will say that. I know he has some suffers with drops and inconsistency, but he's not certainly he definitely has gotten better as a player. So maybe that's why if they were to stay away from Fuller, that would be the only reason. But Curtis Samuel would be fun down there. I'm just not sure. I told Peter this. I think Curtis Samuel outside of Galladay is going to get the highest paid, obviously, contract for the receivers. I think Curtis Samuel might be after him. I think he might be the 2nd highest paid receiver. Maybe not, but he'll be top of the market. Say this guy who asked is a Washington fan. He's your number 1 guy. Yeah, I mean, your former coach obviously is up there in Washington. He's a great fit for I don't even know if Satcher's quarterback now, so we know that. But
being a gunslinger that he is, you're going to need to put more weapons around him.
Yeah, Terry McLaurin's going to have a phenomenal.
You can't just have Chris Sims running out there and dropping passes.
Yeah, and Logan Thomas came, out of nowhere last year. Hopefully that continues, but outside of Terry McLaurin, I mean, even though as a Washington fan, you probably agree with this. It's Cam Sims, underwhelming. He had some moments, but even the other guy, what's his name? Steve Sims.
Yeah, my bad.
Steven Sims. Yeah, he got a lot of hype coming into the year. And what was the guy's name? He tore I forgot his name. Remember the wide receiver? He tore his ACL coming into the year. He was I'm gonna look it up.
Oh, he was supposed to be their number 2 receiver.
Kelvin Harmon. Kelvin Harmon. Yeah, I actually want him. I wanted the Jets to draft him. I thought he was like a steal on day 3, and then I know he had a connection with like Dwayne Haskins when Haskins was a rookie, and then there was like a lot of positive reports that he was like emerging and stepping up, and then obviously he didn't get a chance to show it last year. So I like him coming back, but yeah, he said Calvin Harmon. Yeah, I couldn't figure out the
Before
name.
that, he said Rashawn Bateman maybe at 19. But the thing is, if you bring in somebody like Curtis Samuel and then you have Harmon coming back and you still have the Sims guys, I don't think that Washington will go another receiver in the first round. I think they would utilize that pick, elsewhere, a different need or just best available player.
If they did, though, how sick would that offense be? Like, even if it's
no, I know, but I feel like that's going all in when you realistically have Fitzpatrick as your quarterback. And
yeah, I feel like that's probably better for like offensive line or even corner because you just lost Ronald Darby, who I don't know.
That's what I'm saying. So if you do bring in Curtis, right, then I think pick 19 doesn't go towards a receiver. But if Curtis doesn't get signed, you don't bring in one of these guys, then I could see like a Bateman at 19.
Yeah, the reason why I keep mentioning Washington, even if it isn't Curtis, like even if it's Juju or some wide receiver, is honestly because of last year. Like I'm sure this guy knows who's a Washington fan. Washington was offering Amari Cooper the same exact amount of money as Dallas were before they signed him. Maybe that was because of like Cooper's specific skill set because he's a great route runner, top 10 receiver in the league, and they wanted to take him out of Dallas, of course, their division. But that to me seems like a team that's willing to spend money on a receiver. So like that's why I keep linking all these guys to Washington, especially to pair with Terry McLaurin. So yeah, the Darnold news is coming out. Washington's still interested in him right now, it says. But
you're seeing it right now.
I don't know. No, it came from Bleacher Report. I'm pretty sure that's the Connor Hughes report that I mentioned earlier. You're going to get these condescending reports all the time now with Darnold because the Jets have to be leaking some stuff as well. Like this is the time where Douglas is saying like, oh yeah, we like 4 or 5 teams called for Darnold because we're trying to up his value. So, but if I had to believe anybody, I would say Kim Jones is right from NFL Network over Connor Hughes. And I don't want to bash one of our guys, but like, a lot of our beat reporters really don't have an idea what's going on with Joe Douglas and the Jets. Or I don't think anybody does until moves actually happen, which is a breath of fresh air, and it's when people are scrambling, making up stuff.
I'm just checking the CJ Golson page to see if there's any, unverified rumors going on. The last thing you retweeted was just
Juan Alexander got released today. You guys, like officially?
Yeah, it was already announced a few days ago it was going to happen. It was known. He's not going to be ready. He tore his Achilles too late. And he was great for us. We had the best linebacking duo in the league.
I would sign him if I'm the Jets, man. He played for the Niners under Saleh. And he's not going to get a big contract right now. He's getting that 1-year deal.
Because he might not even play the first half of the year. No,
they said he's expected to maybe this is just like agent talk, but he's expected to be kind of ready for the season. So
I don't know. I can't see him tearing an Achilles that late in the season.
Yeah, it's probably just agent talk. Even so, like even if he's ready by September or like halfway through September, it's still because we're most likely getting 17 games this year for anyone like watching. If you don't know that, like
that goes to affect the season.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure the Jets are playing Philly this year. I don't know how it works about like teams with divisions, but I'm pretty sure the Jets, as long as the 17 game gets passed, whenever that gets like officially announced or whatever, I believe the Jets will be playing an opponent from the NFC East every single year. Like whatever place you finish in the division, the Jets finished last year? Yeah, of course, second over last, and Philly. Wait, did Philly finish last in the division last year? Yeah, they did, right? Yeah, so like I think that's how it's gonna work. Maybe it's like AFC, NFC East team where like you just trade conferences and you play, whatever place you finish in, you play that one team out of the division. So that's what it is for this year. I mean, those are the rumors. Nothing's confirmed yet or anything, but.
So do you think we see a Galladay signing today? I think Samuel gets signed today.
So Diana Rossini, this is something that I said earlier. She just spoke to a free agent wide receiver. This is from 5 minutes ago to find out what's going on with all the receivers and why they're still unsigned. He said the wide receiver market is really bad right now, in quotes.
In terms of what? Getting offers?
Yeah, it must be long. I'm guessing either average, probably both, like long-term offers and in terms of like the averages per year or maybe even guarantees. It doesn't surprise me. That's why I was stunned with Nelson Aguilar. But like I feel like, especially someone like Galladay, right? We were talking about maybe before free agency officially started, right? Because we started yesterday when it started. We're like, who do you think maybe he's like the first big signing? I was thinking maybe a guy like Galladay, honestly, because like he is kind of the number one free agent, or he's at least in the top three when free agency started off. It's like, all right, I like some team is going to value this obvious skill set, like one of the best jump ball guys in the league, absolutely massive target for any single quarterback. It's like, and there's more than a couple teams who need. I mean, almost any team could use wide receiver help, but in terms of even money, it's like, all right, maybe Kenny Galladay will be signed a couple hours in, right? One of the first marquee signings, and like we're sitting here, 2:30 the day later, and Kenny Galladay is still not signed. And even not even just Galladay, like outside of Corey Davis, the top 4 wide receivers are still available. Granted, they're probably for different reasons, but like, and maybe it does take one of them, like to get a like one wide receiver probably has to sign first within the top 4 guys to get a estimate about like a fair price, and that's probably what's going on right now. Is somebody doesn't want to take a deal and then find out it's been like you got underpaid because, like, just say for example, Juju Smith signs right now for $12 million, right, and then Galladay gets $18 million or $17 million 2 hours from now. It's like Juju probably, if Juju would have waited, he probably would have got 14 or 15. But from this report, I'm guessing it sounds like it has to be right under the market value for some of these guys, or at least not what they were expecting.
So then at that rate, you're just going to have to expect people to be signing maybe 1 or 2 year deals.
And this is kind of expected, though, for some positions because of what happened with the cap hit. And some of these guys, like we said, Will Fuller, I didn't feel like he was going to have a huge market because, like, teams are scared to pay him, or even that he's going to, like, you're going to pay him and then what, he's going to get suspended again or hurt. Like, you can't count on him every single week. So he said Seattle is imploding on purpose. They are basically saying F you, Russell Wilson. I mean, listen, as a
on
Jet,
purpose.
well, here's what I'll say. As a Jet fan, we have their first round pick next year. So if Seattle want to implode and blow it up, do it. Like I want you to do it. But yeah, I wouldn't say this is on purpose. This is what happens when you start giving out like big contracts and then trading for a guy like Jamal Adams, who you know you have to pay in like a year from now. You're kind of like setting yourself up for not being able to, sign some of your guys back. Like Shaquille Griffin, is he an elite corner? No, but he's 25, and you wanted him as part of your future, and unfortunately, you couldn't get it done, and now he's in Jacksonville. So like when you make some crazy moves like that, and then not only that, it's like, so it's not even about paying Jamal. It's like Seattle don't have a first round pick this year or next year or third round pick this year. So like they're clearly like it's hindering their ability to build. Like they're not going to be in the Super Bowl next year. I can say that right now. Like even with Russell Wilson, I love Russell Wilson. This team is getting worse. So what he's saying is true. Like they're getting worse than they already are. So
I know, but I think all this stuff is what you said was true. But I think it's also like just bigger picture. I think all this stuff has happened when you have a coach who has so much control over the organization and is so stubborn-minded as Pete Carroll is. Because we've seen Brandon Marshall say it before, like in his tenure there, and just former players who have played under Pete Carroll. It's his way or the highway, right? So when you think you're the almighty and you make the big and important decisions, whether it's trading for Jamal Adams or not ever drafting offensive line for Russell Wilson, or just not, you remember the whole let Russ cook thing. As soon as Russell Wilson throws an interception, it's no more let Russ cook. Let's run the ball 50 times a game and then throw on third down. And then I think it's Pete Carroll was the downfall last season of it. And then in terms of just, decisions, like that was all getting Jamal Adams in the building for 2 first-round picks. That was all Pete Carroll.
So yeah, not to cut you off because that what you're saying is absolutely true. And Pete Carroll, that's part of the problem, I think. And it's obviously that a lot of these, and it's them being too aggressive on players who aren't like in a premium position, and it's neglecting the offensive line. And part of it's pissing off Russell Wilson, but it's a lot more than that. It's about like the philosophy of the team. It's not been obviously the same since the Legion of Boom. Everything that dynasty kind of died down, and now they're still relevant, of course, but like getting over that window and over that hump just hasn't happened. But just moving on, like Diana Rossini now, who's like she just said, spoke to a source in Washington about the possibility for Darnold, don't waste your time, in quotes. This is what I'm talking about when you're talking about like beat writers with the Jets. The Jets might be leaking that kind of stuff to them, but it's not true. Like when they signed Fitzpatrick, everyone knew Washington was basically yeah. He's saying that because the downfall of Legion of Boom.
And the problem is he never adapted his philosophy. So an important thing to do in the NFL is change with the times, right? So to adapt to everything. And Pete Carroll's, again, another older coach like Bill Belichick, although Bill Belichick actually adapts. You saw how he was willing to adapt for Cam and, change the system. But Pete Carroll's not like that. So when he came to Seattle, it was, defense first, Legion of Boom. We have all these guys, and we're just going to pound the rock. We have Marshawn Lynch. We have a rookie quarterback. Take it out of the quarterback's hands and just run the ball. And even with the emergence of Russell Wilson in his career, being a top 5 quarterback, being a Hall of Fame quarterback, he never gave Russell Wilson the reins. He never said, "You know what, Russ, go throw the ball on first and second down." Just to let Russ cook thing. It was never his philosophy. It's never going to be, and that's why this breakup is imminent, whether it's this season or next.
So the Texans have another signing, another Patriot. Big surprise to the Texans. Derek Rivers, who was a 3rd-round pick a few years ago from the Patriots. So they're just it feels like Nick
Caserio's bringing in all the guys that he brought in.
Yeah, Nick Caserio is basically signing all the players that he, I guess, drafted or was a part of drafting in New England. They're gonna have like the most signings ever, like just like depth guys, like or what I'm saying, like not like the known
I know, but
guys.
you have to start somewhere. At least they're making moves.
No, I don't mind this approach because I feel like the Texans have already accepted about like what's going to happen with Watson. Like, and even if it doesn't, like the Texans are accepting this rebuild. They know like Bill O'Brien destroyed the roster, and even Easter Bay, like, they all destroyed it. Like ton of Bill O'Brien. They know what happened. It's over. That window's closed. They traded away most of their valuable assets. I mean, Brandon Cooks is the only one left, and David Johnson, but they also restructured their deals. So like, I feel like they've addressed all of their well, Sean's still there, of course, for right now, but other than that, it's like he's saying, yeah, Houston Patriots. Yeah, that's what they are right now. I feel like they've already made like 10 signings in free agency, and like 8 of them have been the Patriots. So, I mean,
but at
it's
least
not
they're doing something
bad.
in
It's just not flashy. Like you're not going to be excited as a Texan fan that they're signing, Derek Rivers. Like you hope some of these guys pan out and that they stay healthy and they get maybe even a bigger role here. So maybe 1 or 2 of them can be household names. That's the hope. But at the same time, it's like reality is probably that these guys are depth guys who are probably going to start here, or most of these guys, because of what's going on.
Well, we know Houston's picking in the top 3 next year. That's a given.
Yeah, and they don't have any draft picks this year.
Lions release veteran defensive tackle Danny Shelton, clearing $4 million in cap.
Well, let's talk about them a little bit. I think we actually, like I said, we covered a lot of the teams today that we didn't touch on yesterday. The Lions are a team we haven't really talked about because they haven't been linked to anybody, and they're also kind of like Houston, where they're accepting the rebuild. If you had to bet money on who's the number 1 and 2 pick in 2022, it's between the Texans and Lions. I would almost lock that in at this point. So, what do you think Dan Campbell and the Lions approaches like even in the draft, even in free agency? Like, just start off we'll start off free agency, but
yeah.
What do they do?
With free agency, right now they brought back their defensive end, right? The whole point of this free agency, what I would do is start bringing in. I still think they should be in on one of the receivers, but not obviously for double-digit price when you're, rebuilding. But you want to start bringing in defensive pieces so that not even for Goff, because Goff is just going to be the bridge quarterback to whoever their franchise quarterback is going to be, like next year when they pick in the top 3. But this year in the draft, what I would do if I was them was take, if he was there, Rashawn Slater. I think you start building the offensive line. You start, and then later in the draft, you take the defensive pieces. The wide receivers, again, if you're going to be bottom 3 in the league, you don't need to sign, a Curtis Samuel or any of these guys. So build the defense. You still need secondary help. Okuda, not enough. He got to a slow start, but I still think Jeff Okuda could play in this league. He could still be a number 1 corner, but you need more help in the secondary. You definitely need a pass rush, not just, bringing back your guys already. So they're a long way away, which is why they're going to be picking, again, the top 3. But I would start with the offensive line for now. I'm not buying the Lawrence hype.
Well, I mean,
I know where Ryan stands on this, and I kind of agree with him. So I think just to go quickly, Lawrence, everybody was saying from even last year, right, that this is the next Andrew Luck. This is the next generational quarterback, and I still think he's deserving to be the number one quarterback. Number one pick. I just don't think he's going to be the next Andrew Luck. I don't think he should have gotten that kind of hype.
Yeah, I will
I don't
say
think he's garbage, but
after reviewing it, because when people talk about these kind of things, I think they're talking about prospects, not what actually happens in the league. Trevor Lawrence is at least one or two after Luck about one of the best prospects coming out, at least top three. You can argue.
Do you think he's going to be the next Luck?
But I think that's tough to ask for anybody. But
that's what he's being.
Here's the thing. Here's my concern, because like what you said, we talk about this with quarterbacks a lot too. It's like, what team is he going to, and what are they doing to help? So I feel like Jacksonville will have some. Like, I don't feel like an offense is going to be that much of an issue for Jacksonville, even with what they have right now, and that's without a big free agent addition or the draft. But I really do not like Urban Meyer. I don't think that's a good hire. I think he's out of here in 3-4 years. I could be wrong, but I don't like that. So am I concerned that he's not going to live up to the hype? Do I think Trevor Lawrence can do what Andrew Luck did and take a first overall team into the playoffs the next year after one offseason? And the Colts didn't even make many moves that offseason. No, I don't think he can do that. But Jacksonville also might be a worse team than the Colts were in that, when they were picking first overall. That's also fair to say. And you shouldn't expect Trevor Lawrence to be. I would hope that he can be competitive next year, win 4 to 6 games, and put some good scares into teams. But like we've seen what Deshaun Watson did this year, right, with the Texans. I think Jacksonville's going to be better than that, but they're not going to be that much better than the Texans were this year.
So you see them around 4 wins.
They're going to be better than they were, of course, but like it's not all about year 1, 2. So, but to ask him to be Andrew Luck is tough. I mean, Andrew Luck was one of the best prospects ever, and he was absolutely phenomenal with a really bad Colts team. So no, I don't think he's going to be that, but I think Trevor Lawrence is going to be really good, and I think Jacksonville fans are going to be happy with him. But is it fair to say maybe that he isn't, like you're saying, Andrew Luck prospect? I think it is. I think because a lot of, especially in this draft class, it's like a lot of people even have. I don't want to say a lot. Zach Wilson is quarterback 1 for some people. There's a Fields hype that's growing now. Fields has some love as quarterback 1 in this draft class. Now it's not a ton, but there's also like he also has some of it. And people aren't putting Trey Lance at quarterback 1. People are really excited about Trey Lance's potential. And, people have Trey Lance as some people have him as quarterback 2 and 3. So
I think this is the first time in a while where we don't have like a solidified like QB ranking going into the draft. I think everybody, like the consensus is not all the same. I don't think there is a consensus this year in terms of like the top 4 or 5 quarterbacks. Even though Luck was good, he still didn't live up to the hyper potential.
I disagree, man. With Luck,
yeah, he did live up because he was a top 5 quarterback in the league, and it wasn't his fault that he didn't get over the hump and he got to the championship, whether it was Deflategate, all that stuff. But
if
the fact that he brought him to that point,
if Luck was on these teams,
he was working with,
they win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, there's no way they don't, especially with how.
Or at least make the Super Bowl, at least make it there, or the championship game, because he also dealt with dealing against Mahomes before he obviously retired, and Brady when Brady was still with the Patriots, but. Those teams weren't comparable to the Patriots or Chiefs. Those Colts teams, like it wasn't built yet. I think Andrew Luck I think he exceeded expectations. So I don't think he failed. I think the Colts maybe failed him, but
I think Trey Lance will be awful in the NFL. I don't see anything good from his arm besides the strength, and he shows it on his overthrows. The thing with Trey Lance is, yeah, you go for it.
Yeah, Markello was here, our other host.
Yeah, I know he'd be livid.
You're lucky he's not here to yell at you, but I like Trey Lance. I guess I do get some of the concerns. Can he be really good? Of course, but the reality of the NFL draft is when you include, whether they situation and just all the quarterbacks come out, most likely there are going to be 2 or 3 guys who are just straight up a bust, or at least not what they were hyped up to be. Trey Lance scares me in that kind of sense where it's like people are going to bet on potential. And I can see it. You see even on the pro day, it's like the massive arm, the frame, the athleticism. But like he didn't have a lot of throws in college, and obviously he didn't get to play this past year, which I think kind of hurts, or it kind of hinders his. I would have liked him to have another year, as a full 16-game season, but we didn't have that, unfortunately. I mean, I don't want to say right now he's going to be a bust because if he ends up with San Fran, he's not going to be a bust. I can tell you that right now. So let's see where he ends up before we start calling people bust. Could it be possible? Of course. I mean, a lot of things happen in the NFL, but From right
That's what
now,
I was going to say, though.
it's way too early right now to say anything.
I think all of these quarterbacks have the potential to be, again, top quarterbacks in the league, and they all have a potential to quote unquote bust. I think all of these quarterbacks are dependent upon where they land. I think it's a lot like that Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield draft class. If Josh Allen doesn't go to the Bills, he's not Josh Allen. If Lamar doesn't go to the Ravens, he's not Lamar. So if Trey Lance goes to a good organization who's going to build around his strengths, because that's the new thing in the NFL. You don't build around, you could have weaknesses. You just build around the player's strength. That's why Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson are able to be what they are, because they hide the weaknesses. You don't build around the weaknesses. You build around what they're good at.
And
So if you
doesn't
do
it
that
also
with
like
Fields,
even
Trey
Lance,
Lance,
right? Even if Lance takes a little bit as a passer to develop, I don't even think he's a bad passer. I'm just saying if that's the flaw that he has, like isn't the floor pretty high with his athleticism? Like teams are going to be scared as hell against him if he's running through the middle of the defense or on the outside. That's like if you're playing like a
that's
play
what I'm
action.
saying. So you have to go on an offense that's going to be willing to let you do that and have build the scheme around you.
We have some new. Rodney Hudson has been released from the Raiders, former Pro Bowl center. They're saying it's a surprise one. So, do we understand what's going on with the Raiders, Peter, at all? Because
as long as
another signing, the top slot corners off the market might head to the Bengals.
Say it again.
Mike Hilton from the Steelers, the top slot corner, is going to the Bengals.
To the Bengals, all right.
So since he have added to the cornerback room, I think they accepted William Jackson's gone, but Mike Hilton plus Awuzie plus getting back Trey Waynes, who didn't play last year, plus Jesse Bates, it's not a bad secondary. I don't know if it's top.
Let them start finally focusing on this offensive line.
But let's go back to the Raiders. Like I understand some of these guys are older, right? And
yeah, so I think the whole point of this was just to rebuild
the offensive
line
before we go to Hudson, because like Trent Brown was hurt with them. He didn't play this year. There was a lot of weird stuff going on. I understand. Didn't work out with the big contract, but like to cut Gabe Jackson then and then now the center Hudson, it's like I know they have big contracts, but like I don't understand. Well, what's to replace three guys in the same offseason when you have a bunch of holes on defense?
I think they just want to overhaul their offensive line. I think they want to scrap it and start from scratch. But you can't be Gruden 4 years into your job and then just now starting to rebuild an offensive line or just now starting to rebuild anything. You should have been, the team should have been made at this point, not just starting rebuilding now.
Jerry Jones said if Pitts falls to 10, he'd probably take him. They will continue to be a circus show until he's gone, and you forget he tried to take Manziel. That is true.
Listen,
Pitts is such a good player.
Let's run with that, right? So I don't think Pitts is falling down to 10 because some scouts think he's a generational talent at receiver or tight end, whatever you want to say it. But if he somehow falls to 10, I could 100% seeing Jerry do that kind of thing. Because Kyle Pitts at 10 is more flashy and Jerry light than just taking whatever best available corners at 10. So if that happens, you expect obviously you're not going to see any of the other two guys, Schultz and the other tight end. You're not going to see them on the field.
Jarwin? Schultz and Jarwin, I think.
Yeah, one of them's going to be let go.
I don't even know. It was Schultz last year.
Yeah, and Gallup would probably be traded at that point if you bring Pitts in the room.
Yeah. I mean, I love Kyle Pitts, but like you have the best trio of receivers in the league. Like you have Dak,
and you have needs elsewhere. And plus, I don't think Pitts will be there at 10.
Unfortunately, Zeke's paid big term, long-term money. He's tied up there. The offense line is obviously declining, but it's still relatively. It's not great, but it's still solid. It's not bad. It's just like kind of in the middle now. So, and we know the defensive needs for Dallas, Peter. Everyone knows secondary. Like they tried to get Trayvon Diggs last year. We hope that in year 2 he gets better and steps up. And they just lost to Awuzie, who's been up and down as a player, but he's versatile, and I think that is a loss. I don't know what the money was, but that's a loss to me on the secondary. So Dallas, I think they almost have to take a corner in a 10th overall. The only other position I would consider, Peter, I think you're with me on this, is if Rashawn Slater falls to 10, then I would seriously consider at least taking him.
I'm taking Slater anywhere in this draft. As long as I'm not the Jets, I'm taking a quarterback.
Yeah, just seen that. I think he's the top slot corner. I like that for Cincy. I'm mad at them for not doing anything about the offensive line. We still are. We still haven't done anything with it, but at least they're getting defensive help. I feel like they have a decent overall defense, but So a Trent Williams update is from Diana Rossini. I spoke to a source in San Francisco to get an update, and nothing yet, but trust me, all hands on deck effort to get him back.
Yeah.
This is one of those moves that I think is going to happen. Like I think that they're going to
And
end
he
up
still
just
played, as a top tackle in the league.
Yeah, and listen,
So even at his age,
they're still in that Super Bowl window, at least playoff. Like they're going to run it back with a healthy
they just
George
need to
Kittle.
stay healthy.
Yeah,
and
hopefully
now they have some holes to fill, which they didn't have prior.
I do hope they sign at least a veteran backup. Like just not no offense to Nick Mullins, who he actually played pretty well, but like when Beathard and Mullins are the backup and you're a playoff team, they're not going to be getting you to the playoffs or winning a playoff game. Like maybe it is time to pony up a little bit of money for Dalton, which is unfortunate. I don't want to tie that much money into a backup quarterback, but if I know my starter's getting hurt every year and I have a playoff caliber roster, I'm gonna have to invest a little bit of money into the backup QB.
All right, Ryan, I'm going to have to sign off. If you want to stay here, I just got to go get ready for my midterm.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. No, I'll hop off with you. We had a good time. We're actually on here for 2 hours and 40 minutes. I think kind of around the same time as yesterday. We had a lot of comments, but thank you guys for joining us, and good luck on your midterm, Peter. Everyone wishes Peter some good luck.
I'll talk to you guys soon. We'll do an update video 100% when like Galladay and Samuel and those guys sign. Yeah,
I think we'll be done with the live streams for right now. I mean, unless you want to do it tomorrow or Thursday, but we'll, at least at the end of the week, when all the kind of major signings happening, we'll have like an hour and a half video kind of recapping the fits and everything else. And there's going to be major trades. I think I'll say two major trades happen tomorrow around 3 or 4 p.m. So anyway, thank you guys for joining us, and we'll talk to you later.
Yep, we'll talk to you guys soon.